Anything exciting? Anyone?
Did two open houses.
No, nobody. You sat on 2 open houses?
Yeah, had a listing and one that on.
How'd it go? It's good.
So Saturday wasn't so good. I didn't have anyone show up, but yesterday I did, and now I have offer on the table on my listing. So
Nice. That's really good.
So if I leave, I'm kind of in the middle of that little thing.
You're middle negotiating?
Yes.
Okay, very cool.
Trying to get another buyer in there earlier this morning. That was
Nice.
scheduled for later. So.
Very good. Anyone else? Anything exciting?
2 or 3 houses, or I mean, on Saturday,
Towards some houses.
2 or 3 houses on Saturday. Saturday, we went and saw 3 houses, my wife. Sunday, same thing, but 4. And some of them, there was one that it dropped its price from like 3,999 to the 360 or something like that. 3.6, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's quite a drop.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing prices either stabilize or start to slope off.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot more signs.
What other takeaways did you have from previewing those properties? What else did you learn?
How the agents worked, all were good and professional, communicated well, the facts of the property, the facts of the community, stuff like that.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Anyone else have anything to share from the weekend? You guys all had a boring weekend? Wow, a lot of excitement in this room today. You guys are mellow. You're mellow. You're mellow. Benzo, you're mellow. You haven't said anything.
You had the blues on.
I had the blues on. Is that what happened? It's my fault now.
Yeah.
So it's my fault. Got it. All right. All right. Well, let's get into the material because I do have a ton for you guys today. And today we're actually going to be primarily focused on this little beautiful button right there called opportunities. That's going to take up all of today because there's a lot to learn inside of there. Does anyone know or has anyone used this tab yet? You know what it's for? It's how you get paid. Yes. If you want to get paid and you want to get paid on time, you better get very comfortable with using opportunities. What I would tell you is this: anytime we've had an agent start off new with us, whether they're experienced or brand new, doesn't matter. The challenge they always have with getting paid at the table is that they don't take care of their paperwork on time. So today I'm going to kind of show you opportunities and some different features within opportunities, but simply put, it's where your paperwork lives. And it's how you're going to submit to us your commission requests, your what I call disbursement authorization. Those that have done deals, you'll know that your title company will typically ask you, hey, do you have a disbursement form that essentially allows them to pay you directly? So they'll cut a check to you, then they'll cut a separate check to the brokerage that you're with. So that will not happen unless this occurs. Everything I'm going to teach you today. I've seen situations where the agent has a closing tomorrow, the title company is asking for that, and they haven't done anything yet inside of this system. So that's a big no-go. So I'm gonna go ahead, Joe.
I'm just trying to, and I don't want to deviate, but if I have a transaction coordinator, and again, I don't want to deviate, is that something she could do or would do?
Yeah.
Or me, and that's.
Let me build.
That's one of my hang-ups.
I'll parking lot that and bring that up when there's a part that I'll get to that'll be more appropriate. Let's discuss it at that point. So that way everyone's caught up to that point, and then I think it'll make sense. My answer to you. So let's do that. So let's kick off. Remember, we get into command. We're always gonna be in the home screen when we first kick off. Let's talk about first, one of the first ways to use opportunity. So typically speaking, when you guys, so what different lead generation methods are there? Just name a couple quick ones. Lead generation sources. Perfect. I was actually looking for everybody to say open house. Open house. I heard door knock.
Door knocking.
Phone calling.
All right, let's just stick on those two. Doesn't really matter. I just want to talk about 2 different lead sources for this example. So I just did an open house this weekend and I had 10 people come through. And I made great contact with 2 of them, and there could be something there. There could be an opportunity. Isn't that great there? It's called opportunity. Wow. So what is the first thing I should do? So the first thing we need to do is add that contact in. So I'm going to actually go through the whole step right now for the purpose of you guys seeing it. So I just met, I'm not going to fully fill it out, but I just met Jordas.
Sorry, I can't read.
Oh,
So little, like,
So I just met Jordas test buyer at an open house. I'm naming it this just so I don't get my database all unorganized. So I'm putting my person that I just met at the open house into my database. I will put their phone number, I will put their email. That's probably the most I'm going to probably have at this particular point. If I am tracking and doing open house as part of my business, I probably have a tag that's called open house. I don't think I do anymore. I do still have it in there. So I'm probably going to tag them open house and I'm going to add them to the database. So I'm going to create that contact into the database. And then remember last week we talked about smart plans. So you might already have a smart plan for open houses that you use that combines text, emails, etc. That's for you to decide how you want to do it. But the point here is that I've actually now set an appointment with Jordas and he's an actual opportunity for me. So I want to be able to keep track of that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now go to Jordas's tab, his contact card, and I'm going to go to opportunities. And I'm going to go ahead and create an opportunity with Jordas because there's a possibility in 6 months he might do something. You're not going to have this toggle features. All yours is going to say Naples just because I'm over both office. And then it's going to show all this stuff in with the little red stars. Well, we got to fill out. So it's going to ask you what type of opportunity is this? Well, it's either a listing, a buyer, it's a landlord. So maybe I'm going to list their property for rent, or it's a tenant. Right now, I just said it's a buyer. So I'm going to go ahead and click buyer. Then it pulls up my name as it is in the system. If I had a spouse that's going to be a part of the deal, this is where I would put the co-buyer, but notice there's no little star. It's not going to prevent you from moving forward, even though there's 10 buyers. Realistically, we just need one buyer name to get the opportunity started. Then you're going to name it. It's always going to default to your buyer's name in the system and then buyer at the end, maybe. So at this point, we don't have a property, so I'm probably just going to leave it like that. Then it's going to ask me a couple other quick things like estimated closing date. I don't know. We just met. We don't even know when we're actually going to do something. So I'm not going to worry about that. Time frame I could do. So hey, time frame 6 months. Budget, you know, I do or don't have a rough idea so far. Right now, we're going to be scheduling an appointment for a buyer consultation in the future. You know, we were looking maybe at $350 purchase price because that's the house we were at, and they said that was in the price range. So maybe I might put that. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. It does matter for you to know what your potential income is going to be, but it doesn't have to be exact right now. We just, if we have a budget, a rough idea, we can pop that in there. You'll see why it's important to do it later in a second. Then the commission rate. I always put 3 because I'm going to shoot for a 3% commission. If it ends up being lower, it ends up being lower. Right now, we're not committed to anything, by the way, guys. There's nothing. We're just creating a card that says, hey, there you have an opportunity with this person to do a deal. Then here it shows me opportunity phase. Now, before I actually go into that, let me just open up another tab real fast because I want to show you at a higher level what that's actually even referring to. So what I'm going to do right now is we're in contact right now on this tab. On this following tab, what I'm going to do is actually go right into the opportunities. So I'm clicking on opportunities. And let me click on mine for Jordas Reyes. No, up here, yours won't have like a team name or anything there unless you are on a team. It'll just have your name as the first option. So that's what I did for myself, is I created a name for myself there. Now, and don't randomize the screen yet. I'm going to come back to it and we'll hit parts of the screen that I want you to know. What I want to connect for you right now is because on this screen, it's asked me to put it into an opportunity phase. And it's either telling me my options are cultivate, appointment, or active. And then there's some additional options here on the stage. We're going to hit that in a second. What this phase is talking about is this right here. It's basically saying, are they cultivate? Like, hey, it's just somebody for the future. There's a potential person in your pipeline to do business with. Is it somebody you have an appointment with? Or is it somebody who's actively searching homes? That's what it's asking you. Based on our scenario, what am I? Where would I go? I'm an open house person buying in 6 months. Cultivate, everybody in agreement? I would want to put this cultivate. So let me go back to, there's already defaulted to cultivate. And then within cultivate, it gives me 3 options. It gives me watch, nurture, and hot. Now let me go back to opportunities here. I'm going to actually click on cultivate here so I can see what these other 24 cultivates are. And here you see those options again, watch, nurture, and hot. The way I like to look at it, you guys can make your own conclusion on it or definition for it, but I like to look at hot as somebody who's gonna buy in the next 3 months. Nurture, I look at it as 3 to 6 months, and 6 months or more, I look at it as watch. That's kind of my personal definition for it. So I said 6 months roughly, right? So where do you guys want to put me? All right, let's put me in the nurture phase. So I'm gonna move here and I'm gonna put myself in nurture. Now I'm gonna hit create. So there we go, under Jordas Reyes contact card here, open house person. I have an opportunity, it's in the nurture stage, under cultivate, and the budget's $350. When I get to the point that I'm actually ready to start doing some paperwork, this is where I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna leave the screen up here, because we're gonna come back to it in a second here when we start a transaction. I'm gonna go to opportunities though for a moment here, because I wanna go back to this screen, the dashboard from when you log in. So I can kind of give you an overview of everything here. I'll just focus on the buyer side, just that there's data there that we can utilize. The idea here is for you to really track your pipeline. How much business is in your potential pipeline? So every time you put somebody in the cultivate stage, they're gonna fall in here. So I remember it was 24 a little bit ago, I just added this new test here, so now I went up to 25. This is where the budget comes in. If you have a rough idea what the budget is, because now you have an idea that, hey, with these 25 people that are in the cultivate stage, there's a potential of $6.8 million of potential sales volume. That's the idea here. Now, when you get to the appointment stage, so right now there's one person sitting in the appointment stage, notice it doesn't show any volume. It's likely because I don't have a budget set into that person. That's why it's not showing volume for it. Let me click in there. See who's in there. Okay. Let me click on that person's contact. Yep, I just never set a budget for them. Should be able to hit actual and see where's the budget line. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Nope. No, Carl. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Opportunity. It's in the appointment, it's under scheduled. There we go. Let me put a budget in there for this example. So all I did was edit that contact and add a budget in there so that we can go back to the overall view of the pipeline. And now he's still there with the volume that of 350 that I just put in. Activate, same thing. Of those 12 people that are in the active stage, there's a potential of $3.34 million in there. Under contract, there's one person in there and nothing recently closed. Once your deal's closed after the month closes out, that'll go back to zero again. It's just showing you for the month what's in there. So if you had 3 closings this month of August so far, it would show the 3 there and it would refresh in the month of September for you. Here's where tracking your pipeline makes sense for you to know or how to make your income predictable. So if you look at the top right, what does it say there on the potential income? What's the potential income? All right, where do you guys think that's pulling that data from? Each one of those things, each one of those customers, that's saying that your potential income with all the opportunities you have created is 311,000. Now it says probable income, 70,000. Where do you think that's coming from? Not quite. Go ahead.
Your commission.
Well, the commission says it's potential 311.
No, it's the split. It's the split.
Because it depends on this. It's not about the split, nothing that. It's depending on the stage that your customers are in. The further you take them down the line from cultivate to appointment to active to under contract, your probable income goes up because there's a higher probability this customer is getting closer to a closing. That's what that is. So like, for example, if I click on the appointment stage here, I want you to see something. Even in the appointment stage, there's different stages. There's the scheduling the appointment scheduled, they've kept the appointment. Let's see, I think there's one more. That's it. That's only 3 stages. So scheduling, scheduled, and kept. Notice these percentages. That's how that's tracking that. It's saying that now, hey, you have a 20% chance of closing them in scheduled stage. Watch this for a second. So it was 70,000. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
The probable?
yeah.
Let me see what happens when I move them over here. Okay, I move them up. Let's go back. I went up a little bit, or did it, or did it not? Yeah, it was 70 even before, yeah, so now the probable went up a little bit. So the further down the pipeline you get them, the higher your probable income goes up. And then the same thing, we're not gonna analyze each single one right now, but it's the same thing on the listings, buyers, leases, it's all the same data points. The idea here is that I can look at a big snapshot of my business, say, hey, there's 41 opportunities in there. Probable income 71,000, potential income of 311. I think we close all of the opportunities. Do we close all the opportunities that are out there?
1 in 25.
Yeah, they don't all close. So I say that, and thank you for mentioning that, Larry, because here's the thing: some agents may look at this and like, I'm good. Let me just work on closing these. Some of those will not close. Many of those will not close. Many of those will not close. Okay. Let's go back. Any questions? Let me stop for a second before I keep going deeper into this. Okay. If you look at each stage, the main things I want you to know is how to move them around. So it's real. I don't know if you guys noticed that, literally just grabbing the card and moving it around. If I had this buyer ready to go into the appointment stage, I literally hover over the appointment stage. I'll get the little weird color. See that color, how it changed on the appointment? Do you guys see that or not?
Yeah.
Hover, now that's going to drop it in there. Now I can go into the appointment stage and go find that person. Okay. Where did it move? Did it move it? There they are. So I needed a refresh. And there's that person that I just dropped in there. This is designed for you guys, again, to keep track of your progress along the way and making sure you know where you're at in each phase of your customer's transaction. What I would encourage you guys to do is make sure to cultivate that every opportunity that exists for you, you put there. Because now, instead of me guessing, all right, who are my hot leads? I know who my hot leads are because I'm going to go to my cultivate stage, and I've already organized in such a way that I can clearly see who the hot leads are, who I need to nurture, and who I need to just simply watch. Questions on that? Okay. So let's go back to our guinea pig under contacts and get a transaction started. So I met with Jordas, we agreed to work with each other, and now we need to sign some paperwork. What paperwork would we probably want to get signed right now when we agree to work with each other? Transaction broker, buyer loyalty agreement. Okay, yeah. So let's get to that point. So we've already created the opportunity in the past, so it's already there. So I'm just I can either find it by going to Jordas's contact card and or going directly into opportunities and going to the dashboard. As long as I know what phase he's in, I can easily go find him. Let's just say I'm going to go through his contact card. I'm going to click on the opportunity. Make sure you always click tab opportunity and then click on the opportunity. It's going to open up this window. And we're starting what right now? Paperwork, which is documents. So we're going to go to documents. And we haven't done a deal yet with Jordas. We're literally starting the paperwork right now. We don't even have a DocuSign room, so we got to do that. So first off, in the status, checklist type, it's going to be a residential sale. Notice the other option was a buyer referral. So like if you sent out a buyer referral to an agent in Texas, you can track your referral in here as well, and your paperwork for that. So I've already selected that it's going to be a residential contract. And notice here on the left-hand side, this is the first thing you need to look at. We're right now in the consultation tab. Later, once we get the property in the contract, we'll go under the under contract tab, because in these two tabs and including the close tab, there's different documents that it's going to request from you. So notice I click back to the consultation tab. What are the documents in there that show me that I can upload? I can upload the brokerage relationship disclosure form, wire fraud prevention, or the IRMA disclosure, flood disclosure. And there's a referral form there if you need it. So there's just a few slots there for documents that you could upload. Now, let's say there was a document in there you wanted to upload, but there really wasn't a spot for it. You could simply just click on these little dots up top right here. And we can just add document. We can name the document, what type of document it is here. It gives us options. So let's just say it was an addendum of some sort that I want to attach. I can name it. I'm not going to name it right now. I can then upload the document from my computer. I don't know if I have any documents there to upload, and then hit save. And that would just add an additional document to here that maybe wasn't already pre-generated for us. Now, we haven't started a transaction yet with Jordas, so we have to get to that point. But let's just say hypothetically, you've already done your paperwork with the customer. Maybe you did it straight in DocuSign or whatever other platform you use. This is where you can go to upload it. So let's say you already have the brokerage relationship disclosure form signed. You have two ways of uploading documents here. When you click this top here, it's not even showing me the second option. And the reason is because I haven't started a DocuSign room for it. So it's only giving me the option to upload documents from the computer. So what I'm going to do first, because I'm going to do everything in DocuSign, is I'm going to start a transaction. When I start a transaction, it's going to take me to DocuSign. And hopefully I can remember my password because I know it is there. I think this is my account. Yep, it's already in here. Of course, let me. Anytime you do it on a computer, it's going to send you verification. Let me put that in.
I got behind a little bit. How did you get
Me
cards?
Good thing this is recorded. How did I get where?
Like I
All over,
lost,
I
I
mean-
guess, where you got to this part.
Well, it all starts in command, guys. Remember, command, opportunities, and all I did was click on documents on the top, and I'm under the consultation phase. And what I did here is now notice it says go to transaction. It said start a transaction.
I'm sorry, I'm here and I don't see those tabs. Oh, where-
Because, well, you're not gonna see it. Remember, guys, I'm actually creating a real file right now. Unless you're really creating a file, you're not gonna see this.
Yes.
I would follow along with me instead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how you.
You won't see it right now because you don't have a file you're working on in there. So follow along with me. Well, hey, let's do this, guys. Follow along up screen. This is recorded, so you guys can rewatch it with a real file. Go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say, why does it say not uploaded?
Where?
On screen there, right, status, just under status. Not uploaded,
I don't know where you're looking right here.
right down, oh, right there. Oh, I see the little, not uploaded.
Well, there's no documents loaded. We haven't uploaded anything yet. So follow along, because I think if you guys are trying to do it on your computer right now, you're gonna get lost because I'm actually working a real file right now. And unless you're working a real file, you're not gonna see everything that I'm seeing.
I was trying to, but
It's not, I just follow along yet. So let's recap how we got here. So we are in command under opportunities. We went and found the Jordas open house opportunity that we created. And we now are in it. We clicked on documents. We clicked on consultation. And now we ended up hitting start transaction. This button said start transaction before. Now it says go to transaction because now we actually now have an opportunity, a DocuSign room in DocuSign. So we're not going to go super deep on the DocuSign how to, because that's actually next the class when I get back from Bootcamp. That's where we're going to get into how to email signature and how to do all that type of stuff in DocuSign. The idea here is that now we've created a room where all our paperwork lives. I'll give you a quick teaser of what I would do next, because we just said that we're going to get the buyer brokerage agreement signed, and we're going to get the transaction broker agreement signed. So all the information, by the way, from your contacts, so phone number, email, that transfers over here. So if I don't have an email in contacts in command, it's not going to roll over to DocuSign. In that situation, which in this test profile, I didn't actually add any of those two things, but I want to add it now. I'm going to click on details. And I'm going to look for the box that says the buyer. There it is. And then I'm going to simply just hit edit at top. I'm not going to do it all the way through now. We'll do that next week's class. We'll hit edit, and then I'll pop in the email under the email box. Back to DocuSign on the documents page. This is where then I'm going to click add, and I'm going to add documents from all my DocuSign forms. Again, I'm not going to go deep here because there's a whole class just for this alone. What I will tell you is this: if you have never yet done a contract in DocuSign, I would recommend that you meet with myself or Maria before that class, or else your documents won't be in there. Because right now, when I click on it, I see my library of documents, but if you've never done this, it won't show up for you. So we need to get that taken care of this week to make sure you have access to all your documents inside of there.
Even if you didn't have any transactions?
Even if you've never had a transaction yet, correct?
Is Form Simplicity DocuSign more or less the same structure?
Great question. So Form Simplicity, DocuSign, Loop, same concept across the board. We used to have Loop. We ran over to DocuSign. I think you even said you use Form Simplicity. If you use any other system other than this, that is completely okay. If you want to continue using that system, what's going to happen is, remember a few seconds ago, I mentioned that you can either upload the documents from your computer or connect them through DocuSign. So in a situation where you use another platform, you're just going to be downloading those documents to your computer from whatever platform you use, and then later manually uploading it into Command, if you want to continue using that platform.
And where do we check to see what documents are required by?
Separate class. That's going to be the DocuSign class we'll go into. Right now, I'm showing you how to start a transaction inside of Command. Next week, we'll go deep into filling out the paperwork. Not next week, the following week after that. Filling out the paperwork, sending it out for email signatures. We're going to do that next week. What I want to make sure you guys have done this week is your accounts connected properly, so that when you hit add and you go to your DocuSign forms, you have access to the library through FARBAR and NABOR or whatever other boards you may be a part of. Because right now I could simply go to the NABOR forms, and I can go find my documents. So if I'm looking for the transaction broker form, I can literally, there it is, the transaction broker notice form. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to add that form to my library here, so I can start filling that form out. So again, we got to make sure that those things are connected before we can do that.
Just be clear, you want us to make an appointment?
If you don't already have it set up, but yeah, just myself or Maria, it's take less than 10 minutes. It's just to make sure that you're properly set up. So if you guys hit add form right now on yours and it doesn't show any forms, that's what we're going to have to do for you first before we can proceed. So in here, we would fill out all of our documents. Since we're not going deep today into DocuSign, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this document's already filled out right here, this brokerage relationship form, because I want to show you guys a couple different ways to upload. I want to show you the manual way. Once I had this document filled out, I want to download it to the computer. So what I'm going to do, so let's see. I'm going to hit download. Now this is going to download it to this desktop, so that we can play with it later when we go back to Command. Okay, so all the paperwork gets done in DocuSign, all the signatures, everything gets done in DocuSign. Now, when we're back to Command, the reason we use the opportunities in Command and it's connected to DocuSign, the idea is there because Command is where your documents are going to live for the future. And it's also how Jeff reviews your documents, and it's also going to be how Donna gives you documents like the disbursement authorization. Notice how with this opportunity, so we're back to the Jordas Reyes test buyer open house group. Notice how now here I have a couple more options. So when I go back to this file, I can either go to the transaction. That's just going to simply take me right to DocuSign. So I can go back directly to that room in DocuSign. And it gives me this other option here of attach files from, and notice it's defaulted to DocuSign. And what happens is that as I do my paperwork in DocuSign, I can see in here the document. So notice here it says working folder room docs. If you go back to DocuSign, notice the name here, working folder is called room docs. If I were to rename this folder right here that says room docs, it would end up showing a little bit different over here. It would show whatever that name is. What that's doing is automatically pulling the documents straight from the system. So notice here, though, it doesn't give me any options. Anybody want to take a guess why it's not giving me any options?
Because you haven't created it.
Exactly. I haven't yet, and DocuSign created the form and had it signed. You can only upload documents into Command that are executed. if you're manually uploading it this way. So like next week or the next class, when I actually fill this out and send it somebody out, out to somebody for signature, it's going to show a box that shows sign, and I'm going to show you a real example right now. Oops, I just locked out of my command or DocuSign. Let me do this. I'm going to show you. Let me make sure I don't close the tab out that I want. I want to show you a real one, so you can see how they were talking to each other. So let me go to this listing active one. Go ahead, Joe. Were you
I
going
was
to say
gonna
something?
say, if you have it like from Form Simplicity into DocuSign,
Honestly, I think. Well, let me. Who uses here Form Simplicity? You guys do? And you use it to send out for signatures through there?
Yep.
Okay. If you still want to continue doing that, you absolutely can. It's just, I wouldn't do it from Form Simplicity to then put it into DocuSign to then put it into Command. That makes no sense. The only way that I would do from DocuSign to Command is in this situation, if we just remove some Form Simplicity and use DocuSign as our platform for email signatures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to an opportunity here that I have for this gentleman, Andrew and Brooke. And then I'm going to go to my documents in here, just so you can see what it looks like when there's actual paperwork in there. So for example, this is a listing here, and I've already pulled from DocuSign the listing contract. So let me actually, I don't think I could remove it. Let me see here. So it's pulling from my DocuSign room. Let me just go to that transaction. So I'm literally just going to go to transaction. It's going to open up DocuSign for me. It's going to take me directly to that room in DocuSign. That's for Andrew and Brooke. This is what I wanted to show you. Notice the difference now is show signed. When your documents are signed, that's when you can now start speaking with Command, and it'll pull it up for you automatically.
You say as soon as it's signed, it automatically downloads DocuSign down into Command.
It has the ability to pick it up, is what it does. It doesn't automatically. I have to go in there. Like, let's say, for example, let's say an example under this MLS printout. I don't have an MLS printout yet because it's not on the MLS, but if I click on there, notice I have documents that are shown in there. Any signed document in DocuSign will show up here as an option for you to upload. But this is a good example, the MLS printout, that's not a signed document. What that is anytime you list the property, once it's fully active, we download the MLS listing sheet with photos and we upload it into Command. That's not a signed document, so I would never be able to find it under here because it's not a signed document. It's just a PDF that I pulled from MLS. So for that, I would have to download it to my computer. I'm gonna end up switching to attach files from my computer. And now notice it looks different. Now it's just asking me to browse for whatever document I want to upload. Let me go to my downloads file, and I'll just take this one as the example, and I'll delete it later. So we just downloaded that document. Let's just pretend that's the MLS sheet. Hit open, and now look how it's populated in there. How it's in there. I'm going to remove it though, so I don't want to mess anything up.
You always use the file by the naming convention of the person or by the street address of the meeting.
I would recommend naming files by the street address. It automatically does it by default. I think if it was you get a bunch of files together, it might be easier to have the names and the address. I haven't changed it yet on mine.
Right, I mean, could you do, 123 Main Street,
Yeah. The name, yeah.
Jordas Reyes.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you name it, as long as you know where to find it.
But Jordas buys, or Jordas sells it 3 years later to another buyer, and then I could create a file that would say 123 Main Street, Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
That way they would both be archived, and I can make that distinction from that address.
exactly. I think that's where it's easier to have it named that, and that way you can find it in the future, for sure. So I'm going to use this as an example. I'm going to toggle back and forth between this live file that I have going on and then the example that we have going on. So I'm back to the example. We have no documents in here, by the way, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to pretend that brokerage relationship form that I just downloaded is the one that's ready to go. Notice it's not in there. Well, why not? Because I forgot to switch this to my computer. I want to attach files from my computer, and then I'm going to go browse to that file. Click on the file, hit open, and there it is. Now, I'm gonna pretend that I'm ready, and Jeff will probably look at this and be like, Jordas, why'd you do this? You're wasting my time, because Jeff is about to get an alert right now. At this particular point, the only person that knows this deal is happening is you and that customer. The brokerage does not know that you are in a buyer brokerage relationship with anybody. They do not know you have a listing agreement with anybody. The way I notify them is I upload all my documents. We're in this case, we're in the consultation stage with this buyer. And personally, I know this is not today's class, but I'm just going to go into it real quick. With buyers, me personally, I actually do love to do the brokerage relationship form. I probably would do the E&M disclosure at this point. This is outdated. I always do the flood disclosure form and I do the wire fraud disclosure form. I would for sure upload those. And the minute I've uploaded them, I'm going to go ahead and put them in there. And now I'm going to hit this cool little button right here that says submit to Market Center. Avoid any delays, make sure all documents are attached. There's just letting you know, make sure you have all your ducks in order, hit submit. And now all of a sudden Jeff gets an alert, says, hey, Jordas has submitted a file for you to review and make sure it's in compliance. Okay. Do you guys know, let's say for listing, pop quiz, when should you upload all your documents for a new listing you just took?
It's 24 hours.
As you go.
24.
What was the question?
All right, I'm gonna ask again. How long, let's say I just took a listing today, walked out of the house this morning, it's been signed. When should I get the,
By the end of the business.
when should you turn in your listing agreement that you just got signed by a seller to Jeff?
I would upload it immediately.
Okay, so we got immediately. Okay. Within 24 hours. Anyone else want to take a stab at it? Larry, what do you do? Yeah. Soon as possible should be within 24 hours, 48, you're pushing it. Here, because here's the reality of it. You have to get not only your listing agreement signed by the broker. Here's my advice. If you, when I take a listing, Jeff has approved me, I can sign my listing agreements. I get them turned in within 24 hours, he's good. If you're doing your first listing agreement, you need to get this to Jeff ASAP. Same day, if at all possible. Why? Because you need to make sure you did it right. Right? And then eventually Jeff will allow some leeway that, hey, yeah, you're good with listing agreements, you can go ahead and get it executed. I'll review it later, make sure everything's good in compliance.
Wait, this might be a dumb question, but like, what if you don't have photos or anything? That doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't matter because this is the listing agreement. The contract stating that they're allowing me to list their property. You want that turned in within 24 hours. The last thing you want to do is get in trouble because you messed up the listing agreement. We now went under contract with somebody. Somebody wants to back out, somebody wants to do something to break this deal apart. The attorneys get involved. They want all the documentations provided to them. And then we find out that we didn't even have a valid listing agreement because, Joe, I'm gonna pick on you. Joe never got it signed.
Where do we get the listing agreement?
In DocuSign. All your paperwork lives in DocuSign. That's where you do all your contracts. The point is this. Jeff is here to protect us. And if we don't give him documents till the day before closing, and somebody wants to cancel that deal, there's a probability that they might be able to if a mistake was made. And you had no idea because we never knew you had a contract. But I would say, I'm not trying to scare anybody, guys, but this is serious business. This is serious business, guys. I do want to scare you, actually. Forget that. Let me take that back. I want you to be very scared. I want you to be worried you're going to go to jail or that you're going to lose a lot of money for your people. That's how serious it is. Hey, take your profession serious, and this right here is an opportunity because I see a lot of agents that do not take this part serious.
The legal document.
All you gotta do is spend an hour talking to Jeff about some of his horror stories, and you'll probably never want to do a deal again after you hear some of the horror stories.
Can we have that session?
Well, it's an ongoing session to be in all reality. But if you want a session on horror stories, I got you. Okay. We'll get a session on horror stories, maybe at the end.
So
Go ahead.
what I'm noticing here is that we could do all of our transactions without ever pencil and paper or pen and paper.
Technically, yes. Now,
Even the archiving of all the documents, this system is managing those files.
yeah, that's
I
gonna
don't have
store,
a drawer full of.
correct,
papers.
correct, it's gonna be stored. To your point, so with this guy, Andrew and Brooke, I ended up sending the contract to them for the listing agreement through electronic signature. Traditionally speaking, I actually would prefer that you guys get that signed at the house before you leave. Why do you think that?
They regret,
Say again?
they regret it.
They could change their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could change their mind and say, yeah. Maybe not.
You know, we could use our camera right there and just say sign here. or-
You could, but in all reality, I bring,
Fill it out on site and then.
I bring it already.
Put it in there, the DocuSign will send it to.
No, forget all that. Forget all that. I go old school. I bring a physical pre-filled out contract. Only thing that's not filled out are the dates or except like the time frame that I'm listing this and the price point. Everything else for the most part is pre-filled out. I'm gonna leave with that. Later, I'm gonna come to the computer here, scan it up to myself, email it to myself, and then upload it into DocuSign or into Command. I wanna walk out of, and this, I don't wanna get sidetracked too much here. I wanna walk out with the listing agreement in my hand. I don't wanna be like, oh, I'm gonna go back to the office and prep it, and then I'll send it out to you, and then 2 days go by, they haven't signed it yet, like, what the hell, did they change their mind?
So you do want to use.
Or Larry came in and took it because Larry's a stronger agent and said, no, we're signing this right now. You never know why they interviewing another agents. They could still continue interviewing after that you leave.
Carry the paper ones with you.
I personally agree, recommend doing that. All right. Any other questions before I proceed? Stay focused, guys. This is a lot.
For the transaction broker, like for buyer. It's mandatory that they have, like, the buyer has to sign the transaction.
By default, we default to transaction broker in the state of Florida. You want to upfront disclose what that relationship looks like. So hear me, guys. I am a big promoter of have a buyer consultation, show your value to them and get an agreement to work exclusively with each other. And at that point, you also show them your responsibilities to them. Jeff will ask you for transaction broker notice. Jeff will ask you for transaction broker notice.
That's the one that,
And I'll let him talk more about that. Say it again.
that's one that you trust, like say, because remember that you know gonna work with you. Still have the.
Oh, I still do it. Yeah. By the time I do my paperwork, so it's a good question. It says, even if it's like a family member that you know is gonna use you. Yeah, maybe I didn't do it right before we started working with each other, but when I submit all my paperwork, it's in there. Yep, when I submit all my paperwork, I have it in there personally, so. All right, so we've already agreed to work with each other. We're working with each other now and we're looking at properties and, we found the one that we like and we're ready to go and get started. Where would I go to get this transaction started again? To get the paperwork? I'm gonna go to command. Where am I going to get the paperwork? Opportunity. Where in opportunity am I going?
This.
Create a transaction.
Search or the document.
Well, you're gonna find your person wherever they are. Yep, you're gonna find them wherever they are. Who said document? You're gonna click on documents. And in this case, we're gonna go to transaction. Go to transaction would take me literally right back to command or DocuSign and take me right into that room. And this is where I would now go to add and start doing all my paperwork. Again, separate class where we'll go deeper into that. But this is where I would start to fill out all my paperwork. Say again.
Is that class I for next to it?
Yeah, the ones I'm doing that were in the, I think it says DocuSign 101 and 201. I'm gonna go super deep into DocuSign. It's not a complicated program, but it's more than I can cover together with opportunities. That's why I'm not going into it right now, guys. So we do all our paperwork in here and get it all ready to go. Now let's go back to the room here. So same idea as we did under consultation. Now we're gonna actually be working in the under contract tab. Notice the documents that are in there are a little bit different. It's asking me for the sales contract. This particular customer is the test folder. We don't have contracts yet. That's why it's showing me no options. Once I do my paperwork in DocuSign and get it signed, what happens when I get it signed? Does it allow me to pop it up in here now? Populate in here? Yes.
All of them are done or one at a time?
Well, you could do one at a time, but the reality is until they're all signed, they're not going to populate in here. But I want to show you a little trick here to make sure you guys don't get lost, because here's the thing, if I filled out a contract in DocuSign, sent it out to my buyer to sign. He signed it on my end. Now I see a green tab, right, that says sign. You guys saw it, like,
In DocuSign.
all right, I sent it to Larry, who's the listing agent. Larry got it signed in whatever system he uses, and he sent it back to me. That's not gonna automatically just me by dropping it into DocuSign, gonna say, hey, speak to each other. Because it's not a file that Larry originated back to me inside of DocuSign. All I'm gonna do with Larry's email that he sent me, hey, Jordas, congratulations, we got a deal. I'm gonna hit download on the email from Larry, and I'm gonna just upload it here. That's it. I'm gonna upload it here, and I'm gonna upload it also to DocuSign.
Just a PDF.
Just the PDF. Yeah, that's the only thing you can upload in here is PDFs. You can't upload any other Word type or file type. So I'm just gonna literally take Larry's contract that's back, it's executed, and I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna switch to attached files from my computer. And I'm gonna just click browse and upload the contract Larry just sent me that's already executed. Go ahead.
So do you have a checklist to follow? That you are accounting for all the documents on the buyer side, so.
Great, that's a great one.
Well, you go to DocuSign, that test file. I'm gonna go to the transaction compliance checklist here. This one we've been using for a little while now. It's pretty up to date for the most part. Everything still lives there. So you can click on it. Every time you start an opportunity, the way we started this one, that file is gonna be by default in there. So that's my first checkpoint that I use to see as a memory aid, because some of the files may not apply. So I use this as a memory aid. And then another one that I use as a memory aid is literally in the DocuSign opportunity, or in the opportunity in command. I will look through those documents and use that as my memory aid, because he'll have in there which are required, some are conditional, some are optional. The way I like to look at it, guys, is that any addendum, any disclosure, anything specific to the transaction, upload it to the system.
Can you make the template file, like, here's all the necessary documents for a listing or?
Yeah.
And then you can just.
Great question. So in DocuSign, that exists already. So when your DocuSign account is set up, when I go to add a document, and I'm gonna go to DocuSign forms, there's pre-generated files already, depending on, so when I go to packets here, show more. If it's a sales side listing packet, the files would be in there already. So like if we're a sales packet, I can click on it and already see some of those required documents that I may need already in there.
So you just check all those, download to your PC.
Yep.
But they're not all required.
They're not all required, so that's the thing. You got, every transaction is unique. So I just upload everything I have available. I just get in the habit of uploading all documents available.
Or again, I don't want to go into a rabbit hole, but you have a referral.
Okay.
Would it work the same?
The same way. You might not remember right now, watch the video back, but if you guys remember, there was a part where it said when I had to start this and then I had to click on residential, the other option was referral. It's just a place for you to house your referral agreement with that agent.
And I guess the other agent's responsible to get all the documents signed and put into a command or.
No, if you send me a referral in Orlando, I'm the agent, all we're gonna do is have a referral agreement with each other, that's it. The only thing you need to track in your command is that a referral agreement. When that thing closes,
But I'm assuming that you as an
Well,
Orlando agent are gonna do all the documents.
you have nothing to do, right? Yeah, you have nothing to do with it because you're not a part of that deal.
Okay.
You're just a referral agent. You're not a part of that, so you have no obligation to say anything there. We literally have that tab simply for the purpose of us knowing, hey, Joe's got a referral coming in. Let's be on the lookout for it because you've submitted a document stating you have a referral. Good question. What else?
I try to create a opportunity with one my address right now.
Okay.
But why is it showing my page?
Sean, what?
Just showing my page goes.
I don't know how you started from this will sidetrack us, so that's something we have to look at separately. That would sidetrack us right now. Well, other questions, real quick, while we're on here.
So on DocuSign, everything has to be manually
Typed up.
like form simplicity, for example, say if you have something on MLS.
I'm sorry, hey guys, if you guys can try to keep it together, it's an important topic. I don't want to have
I know that's
distractions.
going to be different plans, but I know, like from simplicity, if you find the listing on MLS, push out the sudden transaction, you can pretty much have it, like fill up everything, like the property, description, all those things.
Yeah, no, you're filling out your contracts, and you're filling out your contracts. Honestly, and I've never used Form Simplicity, 7 years, and never touched it. I've always either used .loop or I've used DocuSign, and I get in the habit of checking my MLS stats, checking the Collier County site, and make sure I have all the proper data, not just assuming that the data is correct when it comes in. So, because even if the agent made a mistake on the listing, I'm just going to be making a mistake too. So I personally always verify everything.
So it doesn't propagate from because Form Simplicity pulled it down from the.
From Collier.
counties.
Oh, then if it does it from that, then yeah. I'm not familiar with it.
The DocuSign doesn't do that.
Well, no, DocuSign doesn't pull that data. DocuSign is just giving you a blank form for you to fill out. So like when I do a contract, what I like to do is I have my documents ready to go on DocuSign. I open up my 2 screens, love working on 2 screens. I have my MLS, I have my Collier County Appraiser or LIPA, and I have my contract, and I'm just referencing everything, make sure everything's good, filling out all my paperwork. And honestly, for me to fill out a contract and all the documents with it, I mean, we're talking 15 minutes or less. At this point, it takes 15 minutes or less just doing enough of them. But going back to here, just like we did under the consultation, we're going to put all the documents as well underneath here. All your documents. He's got a slot for almost everything. So like notice here with addendums to sales, there's 1, 2, and 3. It just there's not one called 1, 2, and 3, but if you have 2 or 3 different ones, it's just having a slot for you to upload what you have available. Yeah. Once you've uploaded, we're not gonna actually do it on this one. Once we upload a document, actually I may need to upload. No, I won't do that. Once we upload all your documents, it's gonna notice right here, I can't hit submit. Why? Because there's no documents to submit. Once I start uploading everything, now it's gonna give me the submit to Market Center. Jeff gets an alert again, and now he's gonna review it. He's gonna tell you you're either in compliance or out of compliance, one or the other. And when he sends you that note, you'll typically see that note in 2 spots. You'll see it just to the right over here of this submitted button. It'll have a little chat box that looks like this one. It'll be right here, and then you can click on it and see the chat box from Jeff, or you can go up to notes as well and look at it there. Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
What kind of case business that you have?
There are 3 different ones.
Mhm.
Once you have something in, send it to the Market Center. They're always, if you go back to here, all those files are always gonna still be there.
Always gonna be there. Yep, all those files are always gonna be there. Jeff needed to go pull a file from 3 years ago because there's a lawsuit or something going on. You can go right back in there. We have all the files available to us.
I think one of those is important things, you have to make sure if you do all that work, you have to submit it to Market Center.
Yeah, that's a key thing. So I'm glad you said that. I've seen agents again the day before closing asking, hey, Jordas, where's my disbursement authorization form so I can give it to the title company? And well, we don't even know you have a deal going on. Why don't we know we have a deal? Because you never submitted to Market Center. You never submitted to Market Center. So let's just pretend we've submitted to Market Center, everything is done. We want to now submit the disbursement. So it's called distribution authorization form. We use the term DA for that. This is the document you're going to give to the title company that says, hey, yep, pay him this, pay her that. Company gets it, like it splits it so that now instead of you having to have the title company send the check to us get it in the mail, however many days later, go to the mail, get it, bring it back, open everything up, scan everything through, finally get it in whatever order it's in. Oh crap, you're missing paperwork, can't pay you yet. I've seen agents, I kid you not, and I'm gonna say it right now, it's not our fault, it's your fault. I've seen agents wait 2 months to get paid. We literally physically have the check, but we can't pay them because we don't have any paperwork. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. Guys, we want you to get paid. We do not want to hold on to the money. We want you to get paid. I'd rather get paid personally at closing. I want the title company to give me a check. Some of my title companies that I love, they will even wire the money to me the same day.
All that.
Well, we're getting there now. Here's the thing, we've submitted our paperwork yet, But how does Donna know
Yes.
how to fill that DA form out? This is what the next step is. So pay close attention here. So now we have to fill out what's called offers and commissions. So all our paperwork is done. We're now going to fill out an offers and commission form. Now, for the most part, we all use this to submit the details of this deal so we can get paid. It's also designed for multiple offer situations. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to add in the offer here that we just received, and it's default initial offer. You can rename it, you can put accepted offer, whatever you want, and it's just for you. It doesn't do anything. Where it's beneficial is if you're going to use this to present multiple offers to a seller and you want a spreadsheet that clearly like spells it all out for you. This is where it would makes sense to maybe put, I don't know, maybe you want to put offer A, offer B, offer C. Like that's how I used to present it to sellers in the multiple offer world that we were in. I never even gave names. I'm like, here's the offer, no company name, no agent name. Here's what we're dealing with. This is where you can start to name it. So maybe you might put the agent's name. That's what I used to do for myself, is I would put the agent's name so I remember who sent to me what. But right now we're just one offer, one deal got accepted. Larry sent it back to me. So I'm just going to leave it there, initial offer. I'm going to create offer. And it's going to ask me some questions. It's going to ask me what's the offer date. So the offer date was for today and we accepted it today, and then closing date. And we're going to be closing September 27th. Let's make Jeff proud, and not closing on Fridays. And then it's asking me for the address. Pop the address in. I'm just going to make up an address right now. Pop it in. Address of the property. Go ahead.
How do you choose the closing date?
Well, I would talk to the lender and say, hey, what time do we need for closing, and make sure that we have enough time. And then try to pick a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If I close on a Monday or Friday, yeah. Have I had them not fun on a Friday, and then I have to tell my seller it's okay, you'll get your money on Monday? Yeah, but it's not fun to do that. So I try to close on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Pop the address in. Now it's asking, the next thing is parties. So go to the parties involved. They already defaults my customer's name. And now I got to put in the seller's name. Just put test for now. And notice it's giving me a slot for all this, but it's not required. Only thing that was required was the name. So I personally only put the required stuff for that. This right here, just so I can kind of teach you multiple things here. Again, we already have one deal, so I'm just trying to get paid for this one deal. If we were going to start comparing multiple offers, I would be beneficial to know, is this a pre-approved customer or pre-qualified customers? Because later when we're able to create multiple offer spreadsheet, we can see pre-approved or not. This is how they would create that information. So we're just going to say it was pre-approved for that. Notice here now it's just asking for the associate's information. For me, it automatically populates my info. Now it would just be.
I'm sorry, is that pre-approved, he's your buyer, or is it pre-approved, he's your seller? And you know that from the buyer.
In this case, so great question. In this scenario, it doesn't matter. It's my buyer, and I'm just trying to submit to Donna.
Buyer, so you're putting it there.
Right. Well, hear me out though. In this scenario we're doing today, Larry already sent me an accepted offer. I'm just trying to get all my paperwork in so I can get paid. It doesn't matter. I could not do anything. I don't even have to click that box.
My question is the pre-approval.
Follow me.
You have a pre-approval letter?
Follow me.
Okay.
Follow me. Where this is, where you want to put this information is when you're going to be comparing multiple offers and you're going to present. So let's say I'm Larry now, I'm the listing agent. Well, first off, this is a buyer opportunity, so it doesn't even make sense. But if I'm not a listing agent on a listing opportunity and I have 5 offers, I'm going to put pre-approved, pre-qualified if I'm going to be using the system to compare all 5 offers, because the system can generate a spreadsheet for you that shows you the differences between the 5 offers based on the information you put in here. That's where you would want to be able to put in pre-approved or pre-qualified. Now I'm the listing agent, right? In the scenario that I'm giving you.
Yeah.
So I'm verifying with you. Joe, is your customer pre-approved? Give me the letter.
You don't want that letter.
Oh, of course.
You have to have it.
Yes, if you're a listing, hold on, guys, if you're a listing agent, you're not asking for that on your offer, we got a problem.
If you accept the offer, I'll give it to you.
Say that again?
If you accept the offer, I'll give it to you.
No, get out of here. No, I'm not even gonna look at your offer. No, I'm not even gonna, yeah, you're gone, is what I'm gonna tell you. Tell your buyer they just lost a deal because of that silly approach to it. That's what I would say.
Cash offer.
I was like,
So you have to.
Yeah, I just wouldn't click on, a great question. If it was a cash offer, I just wouldn't do anything. Follow me here, guys, because I think a lot of the questions might be answered here. This is, all these details are if you're gonna present multiple offers. Outside of that, guys, I don't have to even click this. I'm just gonna stick with the required information. The agent's name is test. I'm not even worried about their email and their phone number. Then I'm gonna go to terms. Then in here, this information I wanna have, so I'm gonna keep it real simple today. It's a $500,000 purchase price, and it's gonna be $100,000 in cash, and I'm gonna be a loan of $400,000. And it gives me $500,000. This you want to have correct. Earnest money deposit, maybe we're doing 50,000 of that 50,000 of that 100,000. It's going to be in the earnest money. Whatever the contract says. If there was an option fee, which it's like essentially, I don't even use that picture to be honest with you. So
what is the option fee?
I don't even know what's there for. I'm going to be very transparent with you. I've never used it. I've only ever used this for this one, determination, like I put inspection period in there. Honestly, what I think it is because KW is nationwide. So maybe in some states they use that term. I don't think Larry, do you ever use that term?
I think you see that more in a land transaction. People would put
Oh, land.
Yeah.
empty property.
I just don't know where it fits into this scenario, but again, that's something I have put the determination option. I kind of look at that as the inspection period. Again, this is not even important for you now. All I'm doing is submitting to Donna to get paid. This is only going to be important, all these extra boxes, for the purpose of comparing multiple offers. Outside of that, forget about it. Don't overanalyze it. I don't even care if there's a seller costs or they're asking for closing credits. I don't care because this deal there isn't. And even if there was, it doesn't really need to be in here because I'm not using this to get a comparison of offers. Then it gives you the next option, which is agent analysis. This is where, again, you could write the pros and cons of the offer and give your overall summary. You would do this for 5 deals, 5 offers that were sent to you, and then have it create a spreadsheet for you. That's where all these options are there for you. Right now, I don't care about this because I'm just, again, submitting to Donna my DA. So I'm going to hit save. Notice not required information.
Yeah.
I'm hitting save, and then it gives us the summary of this offer. Now, what do I do if I had 5 of them? I would do this 4 more times by adding new offer and submitting my second offer. Then it'll give you that option to print out a comparison sheet. So you can do a side-by-side comparison, but honestly, again, only good if you filled out all those details. We don't really care for right now. Notice it says accept or reject. Well, clearly we accepted this offer. If there were 5, we would hit accept on the one that we accepted. So accepted this offer. Now notice what pops up. It says manage commission.
Why is it giving that option for us?
Which option?
The acceptance option, because I know that's the buyer side. What is it giving that option?
Because it exists, it's just the default for both for listing and buyer opportunities. It exists there. That's fine. Yeah. On the seller side is where all this would really make more sense. On the buyer side, we wouldn't really be filling out all those details. So I would just go all the way straight through with the required information. So right now, we're gonna hit manage commission after we have this option pops up, manage commission. And in here is where we're going to be able to see from the top down some information we need to make sure we have in there. So first off, yes, it's a $500,000 deal. Oh no, you know what? My commission is actually 2.5. So let me just hit edit general information. Because remember earlier we just defaulted to 3. Okay. And I'm going to put 2.5 so you can see how straightforward it is. It just calculates the amount. The contract date was missing and then auto-populates. So let me just put the contract date. I think we said it was going to be today and close in September. Save. Now, okay, everything's good. Filled out up top, nothing missing. And then I keep going. And then now what I'm doing is I'm verifying everything's accurate. So for example, so my gross commission is 12.5. Looks like I have not capped yet on royalty. I have a balance of 217. So notice, I want you to actually notice something here. Take a calc. So 12.5, 6% of that, which is our royalty, normally would have been 750. But notice it's not populating 750. Why? Because I only have a balance of 217.34 remaining. So it would just pop that out and then I'll be capped on my royalty. Then it'll show me company dollars. So the 30% that goes to company dollars shows what your cap is on the right, it shows what you actually paid in, and it shows what your balance is. Then from there, if you wanted to make any additional deductions or donations to KW Cares, that's where, and I'll show you that here in a second, that's where that will populate. It shows the net to agent. On the top right, I get an overall quick summary of it. Everything looks fine. It's exactly what I expected. I'm not gonna hit submit, but I submit, and now Donna and Jeff both get an alert. It says, hey, Jordas has submitted a disbursement authorization form. Now they're gonna go through, and again, just if Donna goes in and says, all right, well, Jeff has already approved all your paperwork, now she can create the form. And when she creates it, I'm not gonna leave the screen here because I want to touch on a few things. When she creates the form, let me just open up. All I'm doing right now is I'm gonna go back to opportunities real quick because I want to open up another window without leaving this one. So let's go find this test opportunity real fast. You guys remember where I put them? No, what stage? Do you guys remember the stage? It's time to cultivate stuff. You know what? Let's just click on it. I don't remember. But all right, so I just went back to the contact card and clicked on it directly. Here's what I wanted to show you. So where were we again? Go back to documents. I just wanted to show you when you've already submitted the request to Donna for your disbursement form. And by the way, if you submitted it an hour ago, don't call her saying, hey, where's my disbursement form? You literally just submitted it an hour ago. We're not robots, guys. This is why you don't want to be doing this the day before closing or the morning of. You can do your disbursement form the next day from going under contract. Larry, you and I just executed today. Later, when I have some downtime, I might even do it today if I have downtime today. I'm going to submit all of this already, including my disbursement request form. Most people say, well, what if the terms change? Well, it's a lot easier to update the form than it is to start from scratch and you've never submitted it to begin with. Submit your form. Donna gets an alert, right? And she's getting a lot of alerts. As she gets to it, boom, yep, Jeff already approved your contract. And first is saying, oh, well, I get you're asking me for the form, but you've never submitted any paperwork. Go talk to Jeff and get all your forms submitted, then I'll give you the form. You're not going to get a disbursement authorization form to give to title company to get paid directly until you've submitted all your paperwork. Because we do not know if you're in compliance at this point. We do not know if you're in compliance. So I'm submitting my forms. I've made my request. If I go under contract tab, back to documents, back under the under contract tab, once Donna has everything's approved and Donna submitted it, you'll actually see a form right there loaded for you. You'll be like, where did that come from? It was loaded by Donna. And then you'll be able to click on the form. Let me see if I got an example. Well, I can show you an example. No, not under this test profile. Here. Yeah, you'll be able to click on the form. It'll populate the form, and then you can hit download.
Well, put up one of those mega deals for that.
Mega deals. Maybe show you another one. Yeah, it literally it'll be clickable, and you hit download once you click on the form. Go back to this though, real quick. Let's go back to submitting this form. I want to make sure everything's right. Now, let's just say, for example, I have to send a referral to my referral partner in Orlando. This is where, Joe, to your point, you're not responsible for your referral partner is, but that's why if you don't have a referral agreement, that person could, what if they forgot where the source of that buyer even was? And that's happened, by the way. It happens quite a bit actually, where they're, oh crap, forgot about that referral. And an agent then has to, post-closing, go find the money and pay me the referral fee you're supposed to have sent. So you, as the agent that received a referral from somebody, make sure you never forget that. I honestly, when I was doing more of them, I used to put in the name of it, referral as well, just to always remind me, trigger, hey, wait a minute, this is a referral. You usually don't forget, but you know, we're human. You know, so how do I add this referral? Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit add another agent to the deal. And now it is giving me an option. It's giving me the option to search the name. So I'm going to search for Adam in this example, and I should be able to populate Adam's name right there. So if you have an internal agent to the office you're in, you can pull their name up that way. It's rare. It's usually if it's teams that are working together where we see that because they're splitting the deal. If I was splitting a deal with Adam, I would put Adam's name in there and then I would finish filling out the paperwork. But let's just say this is that Orlando agent, so I have to go down to the bottom. And by the way, if you wanted to make any donations to our Gold Scholarship Fund or KW Cares, which is our nonprofit, or our KW nonprofit for kids, you can actually put it in there. So let's just say I wanted to put a donation of $20 for KW Cares, and I want to add a donation for $20 to KW Kids Can. I can put that in there. But now I also need to add extra payment for a referral in this case. So I'm going to hit add item because this agent is where to go? All right, so it's an outside agent. So that's what this is, by the way. Inside referral means inside the company. Outside agent means outside. Well, let me rephrase that. Inside agent is inside agent is KW Naples. Outside agent could even be KW Fort Myers.
But if it's an agent for a different company.
Outside. It's outside.
Outside
So
referral.
outside referral. And if it's even a KW agent that's not in this office, it's still an outside referral. Still. Go ahead.
Is this where you put your transaction coordinator also?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna talk about that here in a second, but yes, this is where, because that's a deduction, yeah, this is where the transaction coordinator would be paid as well. If you're paying them this way, the ones that I use, like Ashley, for example, I just pay her separately after the deal closes. I don't even pay her in here.
Oh,
Just for clarity, not every transaction coordinator that you can use, and I'll talk about what that is in a second. Not all of them are gonna get paid through here. Some of them they just send you a bill after the deal's closed and you pay it that way. And then I just keep track of it on my profit and loss statement that it was a service for that. So I'm gonna send this outside referral to this KW or non-KW agent or KW agent that's in another market. It's a 25% referral fee I'm sending them. Yeah, I like that. All right, 25% referral fee. If it wasn't like an even percentage, then you can also do it by number. The person's name, this is, and then make sure I hit outside. So this is where I'm just gonna, hold on. Whoa. Let me hit refresh because this is not, let me change this outside referral. There we go. Person's name. I want to say Amber. I don't know. I don't think she'll pull up under here. All right, so I'm putting Amber's name in there because that's going to be my referral agent. Add agent. Put 25% referral fee. I'm sending her team. 0%. What'd you say?
It's assigned that to me.
Yeah, that's not what it's clearly not. Sorry, let me just see if this helps me getting closer. I don't know why this mouse is this keyboard is being so weird. Sorry about that, guys. 25% referral fee, agent's name. I'm not even gonna finish it out. Agent's name, phone number, what it is, cell phone, it's usually what it always is, their email, their company name or DBA. So like for us, it's Keller Williams Realty Naples. It's whatever it is for the brokerage you're sending the referral to. The EIN number of that brokerage, you're never actually going to pay the agent directly. You're going to ask that agent to give you their office's W-9. And that's the information that's going in here. I copy it straight from the W-9, copy the information for the name, the EIN number, the office branch nickname, legal name, if there, if it's any different than the above, the address, all of that I pulled directly from the W-9 for the agent's office. I hit save. I'm not gonna fill all this out right now. I hit save, and then it's just gonna build that in. And so it's gonna build all that into here. And then you'll see a summary on the top right. You'll make sure all the numbers are correct.
You get the W-9 from the agent?
From the
himself
agent,
or
yep.
Their office?
From the agent. So what I generally would do if I sent you a referral or you sent me a referral from Orlando, when we executed that referral agreement, at that time I said, hey, Joe, so we can just stay ahead of it and I already have it. Can you send me your office's W-9? So when I'm doing my paperwork, I already have everything I need to make sure that I can send that referral over to you. Can you imagine now if you wait to do this at the last second and now that agent doesn't pick up their phone and you're trying to get all your paperwork in, now you can't even do it because I don't have your W-9 to send you your referral. Yeah.
You get the W-9.
Ask for it. Yeah,
And
and
they can do it like an email and then you can take it from the email. Put it in your address.
the W-9?
Yeah.
Well, so great question, guys. I would just ask for the W-9 and I would put it in DocuSign so you have it for later for when you need it. Yeah.
Where do we find our W-9?
We have it, actually, I think it's in command, DocuSign, if I'm not mistaken, on one of the folders, one of the office folders, in DocuSign. If not, you can just ask Jeff and he'll send you a copy of it. I usually have a copy in my draft in my emails as well, so I can send to you. Yeah. About 10 more minutes, Jeff, about 10, 15. They're coming back. I like that.
Must be your magnetic personality.
Any more questions on this? Once I'm ready, I'm gonna hit submit, boom, Donna gets the alert, and I'm just gonna wait about maybe a day or two, go back in here, look for my DA, send it to off the title company. Questions?
Send it to the title company
Mhm.
in command or?
No, I just downloaded it and send it to them in an email directly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
That way you can get paid at closing.
Yeah, and that way I do like to do it just because I sometimes forget things along the way and just I can make sure that they have it in advance. But that also brings us to a good point that Joe was asking about earlier. Do we use a transaction coordinator? Do you guys know what a transaction coordinator is? Who doesn't know? Just no wrong. I just want to know.
I understand the term, but I don't know the extent of the.
Okay, so if I can share a quick story, in 2017, when that was my first year of doing real estate full time. I put 4 deals together all at the same time. It was around March, April, it was rolling over. I was pumped. Brand new agent, put 4 deals together. Woo!
Wow.
Now I'm like, all right, it's time to service these deals. I got to do paperwork. I didn't lead generate for like 2 months servicing these deals. Then the deals closed, and what do you think happened?
Not some fell through?
Mhm.
No. You have nothing going on.
Exactly. I had nothing going on.
Yeah.
And then I did it again, got 3 deals under contract, and I did the same thing again. I didn't learn my lesson. By the end of the year, going into 2018, I was like, wait a minute, and that's where it's the name Suzanne that he keeps mentioning. Suzanne used to be a transaction coordinator. It's just an independent contractor, just like us, that she served a lot of KW agents. I finally started using her, and at the time, that was costing me about $450 a deal, which I pay at closing. And now most companies are around $300 to $350. They probably don't do as much as her. Hers was definitely really more hands-on, but that's why also you would pay $450 for it. And that was like if you did multiple deals. If it was just a one-off deal, it was like $550. But it was like very white glove, hands-on. She did a lot of stuff that traditionally are not done. I don't want to downplay though what these other companies can do for you. So eventually, then what I started doing is once I have the deal under contract and I have executed paperwork, there's an email to whatever company you choose would say, hey, when you hand us a file, here's the information we want. And they're already going to have your logins because you've already provided your logins for Command, your logins for DocuSign, and they're going to help you with your paperwork. They're going to help you make sure all your contingency dates are met. They're going to make sure that, hey, you're missing a signature here. Hey, we need to do an inspection addendum. They're going to help you with all of that.
That's awesome.
And you pay them at closing. It's a cost of sale. So I know that sometimes I get people, oh, that's expensive. Listen, guys, it's a cost of sale in the intent. Say again?
They don't get the post?
So great question. Some companies do charge you if they don't close. Some don't. So, well, I'll leave it at that. I've chosen to go to another company in the past because unfortunately, if I don't get paid, honestly, I don't know why I shouldn't be paying you either. The way I looked at it. So most companies though, they have the same philosophy around that. So they won't charge you at closing, or they won't charge you if it doesn't close. Their hope is you will come back to them when you do have a contract again. So I always go back to them again once we have another contract. When one company started charging me if it didn't close, that's when I said I'm done with you.
Right.
I'm not gonna, because then I had 2 deals that didn't close, and then when I paid $300 for deals that didn't close, I'm like, this doesn't sit right with me. So I went to a different company. The one actually you guys are, the card that I passed around a second ago, that's what I used.
I didn't get one. I didn't get anything.
All right, I don't have, it's just what I was
One
saying.
of their duties is like they'll call for the bug inspection, they'll call for the plumber, they'll
Can I get a
chase
card?
down the paperwork of filing it.
So great question, guys. Here's the thing. Listen, I'm gonna be very transparent right now. That's who I built my relationship with. Do they do all that? I don't, no, they don't. If you have certain expectations of what you want, how hands-on you want them to be, just know it's probably gonna cost you more money. ultimately, like give you an example, the one I used to use before, yeah, she did a lot of stuff, like down to scheduling inspections, down to a bunch of different things, but I just needed somebody to make sure that my paperwork was in order. My DAs were being requested, all my dates were met. You know, when the financing paper was due next Friday, she would email all the parties, financing due next Friday, remind everybody, because I don't have time for that. I did, but I should be doing better things like lead generating, and going on appointments and negotiating contracts, and practicing and role playing, not servicing the deal.
Sure, it's worth the coin, and just
Oh,
try to
absolutely.
understand the extent of what they can do.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what?
Talk to them.
No,
The fee?
I just wanted to know what she did for you, just basically.
Yeah, so I used to just send the paperwork and she talked to title, she talked to lender, she talked to the buyer's agent. And just make sure all the inspections, all the HOA paperwork was submitted. That was one that was a scary moment too. At one time I had an HOA the day before closing, when I was doing it myself, I forgot to submit the HOA application.
Don't you think it's important though to do this ourselves first a few times to actually learn it? Before sending.
Great question. Great question. Obviously, I just told you what happened to me year one. I crash coursed it and learned it. Do I think you have to go through that experience? No, I don't think so. I think you can go through it with a company and have them help you along the way, and you're learning it the same way. At the end of the day, I don't want mistakes. And if you learning on it yourself causes mistakes, I was fortunate that I didn't make mistakes that first year, and no, at least not that I'm aware of that cost me anything. Had I made a mistake, I would have felt pretty silly and could have just avoided that mistake by having somebody review my paperwork.
Have you mentioned in the past the timeline that NABOR had?
Jeff has been the one hitting on that particular topic.
Let's give my experience.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah, so there's a timeline you can download from NABOR. It's really helpful for you and for the customer, buyer, seller side, doesn't matter. It tells you all the dates, the important dates, the short version of a contract, where the important dates are. And that kind of is your checklist to make sure stuff gets done. However, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of work on each part to that line. Just getting HOA documents might be a fight with a management company. I mean, it can take up enormous amounts of time. I'm in a bit of a camp, like this lady here said, I want to know when I first start what's going on, and there's a learning curve to it. You're not going to get 4 deals out of the box unless you're charming and lucky. But just normally
Hey.
work that way. No, you're both. But
And the
yeah,
market.
you'll get like a deal, and it'll take a while, and then another deal. So you'll have time to learn it thoroughly.
Yeah.
They don't expect you're gonna get inundated all the time with multiple deals. That's the people
Yeah.
who have service agents are the kind of people who are really busy, and they don't have time. They want to make sure somebody does that job for them, and it's well worth the money. But that doesn't, not all the agents are that.
Yeah.
All of them.
Wait, so where's that checklist, do you know?
Jeff gave you, so you guys, if you guys are here for the.
Yeah, I have it.
If you guys were here for the contracts part last week,
Yeah.
Jeff gave it to you guys. It was the first page on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in here, but I gave.
It was reason, doesn't, yeah, make a mistake.
Doesn't what?
So, wherever you are,
Yeah, I
make a
didn't
mistake.
get it.
I got Frank same.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if they make a mistake, not like they don't coordinate with the closing family with some date.
Your transaction coordinator?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you liable for that? I mean.
Yeah, so great question. At the end of the day, he's asking who's liable if the transaction coordinator messes up. You are still. Everybody, you are still the agent of the deal. You are liable for everything. So again, that's why I'm saying, just because I said I had a great relationship, or I've had also people say that they didn't. Get to know your vendors. Get to know your vendors. You need to be the one that picks out and says, yeah, I want to work with that person. And here's the reality, any vendor that services me, if you make mistakes, you're not gonna last as one of my vendors. I'll maybe give you 2 strikes. There is no third strike. If you make a mistake and you make another one, we're probably done. Here's why though. It's a direct, you're an extension of me. So when they mess up, whoever you use, customers coming to you.
It's always your fault.
It is always your fault.
So
If Jeff messes up, it's my fault.
want to make copies of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, make a copy of that. So what Jeff is gonna print out is literally everything we just walked through. It's a written version of how to get paid, like how to submit your commission request form. I think if you guys literally just pull this video recording, which we'll have on the YouTube channel, anytime you need it, save that clip of it. Actually, Rose or Patricia, whoever's listening, let's cut that part out, the part that we just covered, the commission form, so I can have literally just a separate video for that section. And then the form Jeff is gonna give you right now walks through it as well, written version of it, to make sure you guys are getting paid. Any other question before we go on break?
No, I was gonna mention, as far as Suzanne, she was recommended to me by Nico, and I'll make a mistake before she makes a mistake.
Yeah, we all will make a mistake. These companies, when you're vetting them, the reality is I'm vetting their systems and processes because, and like to Larry's point, HOA documents, they have so many relationships with a lot of these communities already that most of them already have like that direct line of sight to get it or a person to get it from, or they even already have the documents because they're working with other agents in the market. So that's a huge help as well. Yeah, I want to mention, yeah, well, exactly. So I want to mention one quick thing, team. I was hesitant to actually even mention it, but let me just cover something. Hold on. Let's see where it's at. I want to show you one quick thing, and in the future, I can deep dive into it. The reason I didn't want to show you is because I don't want you to think you don't need somebody to help you with deals. I personally would recommend having somebody helping you. Let's go back to my active buyers. Actually, let's go to the under contract. I think there was somebody in there, wasn't there? Okay. Last thing I'll show you real quick. Notice this button up here that says stages and checklist. Look at this buyer here for a second. Notice here, we're in the clear to close stage. Let's just move it. So in the clear to close stage, there's 5 tasks that it should be doing right now. It says that, okay, schedule closing on title, do the final walkthrough, update buyer of closing date and time, and remind buyers to turn on utilities. So my checklist, because I'm on the clear to close stage, so this is what I should be doing. If I was in the financing stage, notice it went to 7 things.
Nice.
So in this stage, it says that I should follow up with lender and title. I should obtain the final closing statement. I should confirm the lender disclosed the right? So there's in each stage, there's little things that you can be doing.
That's good.
So the stages and checklist box is how we set it up. None of you will have to set up. I manually set this up myself. So I have a spreadsheet. I've got to find it. I have a spreadsheet that has some real basic things for buyers and sellers that you can put into each stage. You can use that as a template and then eventually modify it just to make more sense to you. But I felt like the template was pretty good, so that at each stage of the process, you can inspect, hey, here's what I should be focused on in this stage of the process. This is critical for you. Whether you use the TC or whether you don't use the TC, it's just another tool to make sure that the experience you provide customer to customer to customer is consistent and that you're doing the same thing over and over and over. Like if you have in one of your stages, you know, well, for example, turn on the utilities. Usually your title of your closing agent or your transaction coordinator will actually send reminders to your customers to turn on utilities, but you could build it into this checklist as well.
So can we get those checklists for me?
Yes, I just don't think right now we need to sweat it. It's not that critical where you need to start this tomorrow. That's why I was really hesitant to say it, but I just wanted to show you something else that's possible. It's not critical right now. Get this first step going first. All right, 10:30, 10:36. Everybody in their seats at 10:36.
One thing that before you get off there, if you go into an opportunity and you look at the status, right? The status has to be active before you can submit it to the market center for compliance. Otherwise, we cannot see it. All right. So if you have status staging, status whatever, and you ask for help with an opportunity or you're looking for a check, we can't see the opportunity unless the status is active.
Yeah.
If you want to show them a document, you want to pull up an opportunity.
I have a fake one. I do need a real one.
Go to details. Oh, scroll down. See where it says under contract? I can't see that
Where?
opportunity. It has to be, go up to the where the little pencil. It has to say active. Up, stage. Up a little bit.
This is space. Opportunity.
Stage has to be active. Right there.
The opportunity phase has to be active.
Remember, the phase is cultivate appointment needs to be in the active. So you gotta make sure you're moving your card
So
along the way.
if you want to submit it to Market Center for compliance, I know you probably haven't gone that far yet.
No, we did. We were
Now,
done.
remember, compliance can't see the contract. We can't help you with the DA, can't help you with payment if the phase is not active. Okay? So we get a lot of calls, where's my DA? And we go, where's your opportunity? And you say, oh, it's in there. But remember, I can't go in and look at an opportunity that's not active. All right? So that's a kind of a source of confusion that might be helpful to you whenever you're looking to finalize a transaction or submit it to command. You need to have the phase be active. Okay.
All right, guys, take a break. 10:37.
Okay, great. Good morning. How many new agents do we have in here? Hey, that's good. I like it. So we'll talk about the listing contract today, and then I want to talk to you about the financing contingency in both the NABOR and the FAR contract. So let's start. The first pages you have are the NABOR listing agreement. Okay, so we'll go through that first. And the FAR listing agreement is always the 18 TB transaction broker. There's 4 different listing agreements in the library for FAR, and one of them single agent, the other one's transaction broker, transition to transaction broker, and bill brokerage relationship. So make sure you use the ERS 18 TB. Otherwise, your compliance broker, which is me, will send it back and say you're using the wrong form. All right. And you know, it's always a good idea if you want to send it to me to sign before you send it to the customer, but you can sign it if you like, because I'll see it on compliance. Just make sure if you sign it as the authorized representative and send it to me for review. But I always recommend, especially if you're just getting started, that you send them to me to look at. I found, you know, I can look at them in probably a minute or two, but occasionally I'll find something that's pretty dramatic that you probably don't want the customer to sign it for the wrong commission amount or the wrong expiration date or something like that. So I think you want to always remember, you can send it to me via DocuSign or .loop. I usually, unless I'm teaching a class, I'm usually able to respond in a few minutes as it pops up on my email. All right. Let's start with the listing contract for, we are always going to be exclusive right and authority to sell. In FAR, there's an exclusive brokerage agreement, which means that it's not an exclusive right and authority to sell. It is if the customer finds a contract, a sales contract, you're out. So an exclusive brokerage agreement just says, I'm the only broker that can list it. But if the customer finds their own, if they find their own buyer, you got nothing. So don't use that agreement. What you want to use is the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. And make sure when you're picking it out of the directory that you pick the exclusive right of sale. Exclusive right of sale says that there's a bilateral agreement between the broker and the seller to sell the house under all circumstances. In other words, if the seller finds somebody, they refer them to you, you close the deal, and it's not a situation where the customer finds their own buyer and you get nothing. The other thing that will come up is you're on your listing appointment and the seller says, you know, my uncle Ralph and my third cousin Sue have told me they want to buy the property. What will you do if one of those people buys the property? And the answer is you can set them up as an exclusion to your listing agreement by including it in the other terms and conditions that says a certain party or parties are excluded from the sale. What I suggest you do is always put a time period on that. Because, you know, with houses are not selling like they were 2 years ago, they're taking an average of 45 to 60 days to sell. And you don't want somebody to come along after you've done a bunch of marketing and open houses and on day 59 say, oh, by the way, my uncle decided they want to buy the house, so you're out. The other thing, other argument to give on that one is, you know, okay, if you have a friend that wants to buy your place, I'll do it for a reduced commission, but you still have to have all of the things that go on to consummate a sale. So be careful with those exceptions. They'll often come up early on in your discussion with the seller saying, oh, my neighbor's interested, or my cousin, or you know, a relative. They can be exclusions to the listing agreement, but I recommend always put a time period on them, like 30 days tops. Right? If they don't step up in 30 days, you don't want the thing going on. You've had a couple price reductions, you put a bunch of time in open houses, all of a sudden, oh, no, wait a minute, my distant relative wants to buy. So be careful with that. But other than that, this is an exclusive relationship between the broker and the sellers, and it's binding in all cases for the term of the agreement. Okay, means that if a buyer comes along and buys the property done under the tenure of this agreement, then you're entitled to compensation. The agreement is between the broker and the seller. It's not between you, the agent, and the seller. So the broker has the right to, if I get a call from a seller that says I'm not happy with my agent, it's still a contract between the broker and the seller, and it's a bilateral agreement. The seller can't just say, I'm out, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. It has to be an agreement between the broker and the seller. So, and understand that if I get a call from an unhappy seller, I'm going to call you, talk about it, and see what we can do. And if it's something we can put somebody else to work with you, we'll try to make sure we keep the contract going. And we don't unilaterally let people just call up and cancel. Okay, that's why it's called an exclusive right and authority to sell during the period of the listing agreement, and an exclusive right and authority to sell. You're absolutely representing the seller, and any transaction that comes along, whether it be direct, you know, that somebody calls a seller directly or calls you, you're entitled to compensation and provide contract to close services. All right, so we start with line 3. In a listing contract, you've got to know who the seller is. So I'm going to use Collier Appraiser. I'm going to look up an address for a listing. And so what you can do is you go to Collier Appraiser, and it'll ask you. Let's just okay, that's what it's going to look like. And we're going to do a search database. It's going to ask you to accept it. And then you can go in and type in your address. It'll have everything in there. As you type further, there'll be your address. And this is the display that you get. And there's the same thing in Lee County. It's called LIPA.org. It's organized a little differently. And the screens are different, but the purpose is the same. All right. We want to list this. We're looking to list this house. So we need to know who the owners are. Technically, you do not have to have both owners on the listing contract. Technically, the person who signs the listing agreement is agreeing to compensate you. All right. In a sales contract, if all parties aren't properly documented on the sales contract, you don't have a contract. And you can get a homestead exemption and be out as soon as you don't put all of the necessary people on there. Could be a trust, could be an LLC, could be 2 individuals, could be 1 individual. You have to find out, and you have to look at the deed. Okay. So you look up, and this is owned by 2 people. Okay. We know it's single family residential. We know here's the address of the property. Here's the legal description. Those are important to know down when we're describing the property down on line 25 to 37. Okay. There's your legal description. There's your post office address right there. Okay. And we're always gonna look at the last deed. So we're gonna click on this book and page here for the sales history. This is gonna show us the last sale. Someday. So we have to find the deed. We have the deed. Where's the deed? Where did it go? Where did it go?
It should be one of the ones on the bottom. It should be loading on the middle,
I don't see it.
the chrome thingy
Your toolbar at the
on the
bottom.
bottom. And
Look
it's
where
your
your-
face.
Oh, here, wait a minute.
Yeah, the one,
Yeah, but that's just giving me that.
yeah,
it's
it's
still
still loading.
processing.
Try to close it out and do it again.
That's weird. Okay, so let's. It would be the same thing. That's weird. Anyhow, you're supposed to be able to click on the deed. Oh. Oh, maybe that'll work. There's an extension to Chrome, I guess it has to. There you go. Hey, beautiful. No,
They're trying to sell you something.
Try and click it in now that you would.
I'll leave this up here, guys. This is that checklist for the stages. Found one that you can use as an example.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else?
won't let me display a PDF.
Try a different browser.
Try and click the deed again, now that you enable the PDF.
Huh, that's weird.
Try and click it again.
Have you got it there? She's got it wrong. You got a Chrome extension.
It's loading book and page. Huh, shucks. I don't know. I'm trying to display the deed and it's a PDF.
I think we click it again.
Hey, I had to add the extension, that's all. Okay, so you're always going to get a deed that looks like this. Okay, and this is going to be the last transaction that happened on this property. And you need to make sure you look at this deed. You can save it. I'd save it to my room if I was doing DocuSign or whatever, but I always want to keep a copy of this deed. And then you can upload it into Command if you like for records purposes. It's a voluntary document in compliance, but it's always nice to see that. So this shows me that you've checked to see that this sale occurred on the 20th of March, 2019 between the grantor and the grantee. All right. So we know that in this listing agreement, we have to have both of these parties on there for it to be a binding listing agreement. Okay. That's how we tell. What else can we tell from here? All right, we can tell a little bit about the assessed value of the property, what they paid for it the last time they did it. This is all public record, okay? And this is telling you any recent permits. The house is new, was built in 17. So you can see that there was a permit for the residence, the pool, and the screen enclosure.
You're not screen sharing real fast for the recording. There we go.
Sorry, I forgot. All right. So we can see on this page, The permits, now this isn't a foolproof display of all the permits. It's gotten more accurate over the last few years, but if you're going in to do a listing and there's tons of updates and you look in here and you don't see any permits, that should trigger a concern of yours that maybe there was work done without permits. Now you can remodel a house, you can put in granite, you can put in flooring, you can do a lot of things, but the minute you mess with plumbing or electrical, you need a permit. And if you don't see any permits on here, you should question a little bit about whether or not there were permits, all right? So there's usually on a single family home, there's an aerial, a lot of information, and it'll tell you, you know, exactly what the lot looks like, right? And there's also sketches. Not available for this parcel, okay. Usually there's maybe, I don't know why there's not, but you can also look at the tax bill, right? And you can see exactly what the tax status is. So this is all research that I think you should do when you start your research behind the listing, okay? That's the taxes that they paid. You can see they're paid current through the last year, all right? So there's a lot of information in this, and the same information is available on lipa.org. It's just in a little different format. Always, always, always go to the property appraiser site before you start working on this listing agreement and make sure you have all the agreements. Make sure you have the most current deed, right? Make sure you have the information about if there's a lot involved or if there's land. You want to know what the size of the lot is, right? You want to know all these things so that you're knowledgeable when you go to your listing presentation about what's involved in this house, okay? So we've gone there and now we know who the sellers are, right? We have two sellers. The broker is always Keller Williams Realty Naples. There's a few little bugs in DocuSign, which is why I'm not going to use DocuSign just yet. That sometimes put your name in as a broker instead of Keller Williams Realty Naples, but that's the broker. All right. So I think we talked a little bit about the first part of the sales contract the last time, and we talked about how important it is. We were looking at the Bar sales contract, but this is the NABOR listing agreement, and it will match identically to the sales contract in terms of. Is that for me? Did I win the lotto?
No, sir.
Anyhow, the list of items here is very important. This is a critical time for you to have a conversation with your seller about the property. And also the other thing I recommend you do is go into MLS and see if there's been a past transaction on this property and pull that up and look at it too while you're going along. Okay.
You said go to the MLS and what? Okay, what?
Go into MLS.
Uh-huh.
Let's see if I can do this without major trauma. So you want to go into MLS and you want to look up and see if there's been a past transaction on this house.
Oh,
Right.
That's
I want to look at anything active. Obviously, this would be part of your neighborhood search to do the CMA, but in this particular case, we're going to look at closed and we're going to look at fingers. See if we can find this real quick.
It's right there.
I could have put Mandalay, couldn't I?
Yeah, but you-
Just scroll up about 4 lines on the spreadsheet.
it's on the- yeah, there you go.
There it is.
There it is right there.
Yep.
Okay, so bingo, we have a prior transaction on this property. somewhere.
If the dates match up with the other. I guess you want to qualify that.
What is it? Huh,
The names went
Computer.
crazy again, you gotta do the names. Click on address, so they go by alphabetic order.
I don't get it.
You gotta click on address on the top,
On your
where you
spreadsheet,
clicked previously.
the titles of your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, so this is important while this will help you a lot with your input into MLS. It'll help you a lot with what went on and what happened when this property sold, okay? So it may have sold 2 or 3 times, but you always want to look up and see, what happened the last time it was sold. Now you got a lot more information on this house. And a lot of this information you can probably use when you're entering your own listing presentation. So there's an HOA, right? So and probably it's not current to 2023, but you can learn a lot by just looking at the Collier County and looking at matrix. All right, so you always want to get this information, and you can look and see, if there's anything in there that would be important for you to include in this list. But you have to have this conversation with the seller when you're first starting out. What do you expect to be here on the day of the walkthrough? Are you taking all the furniture? Are you taking it, remember we talked a little bit about last time, what happens in tennis, love means nothing. In this listing contract or any sales contract, the words turnkey, furnished, partially furnished, I don't mean anything. You need a list. Any of the items that are contained in here, we've gone to great lengths in NABOR to give you a lot of options. But any of the items that are not contained in there go in the word and if it's furnished or turnkey, you want to add an inventory. And you want to take that inventory as soon as you can so that you have something to give to the buyer's agent to say, here's what's conveying with the sale. If there's a family chandelier hanging in the foyer that's not going to go, needs to be down there on line 24, lines excluded. And remember, this contract differentiates between real property and personal property. So it's broken into 2 sections. Real property typically involves fixtures, means that if it's attached to the wall or attached somehow to the structure, it's a fixture. A ring doorbell is a great example. Okay, I'll put the ring doorbell on the wall. I screwed it into the wall. Is it a fixture? Can I take it with me? Not without excluding it. Okay. So anything that's attached, curtain rods, not the curtains themselves, but curtain rods, anything that's attached, including the television bracket. That bracket there stays with the house. The television, unless you specifically include it, doesn't go. So you have to be careful with that. So you're going to do the same thing that you're going to do when we were a buyer's agent as you are when you're a listing agent, and you're going to confirm with the seller or sellers exactly what's going to go. And if it's more than what's in here, get a list, have it. You can do it with a camera if you like. I don't like video because it's too hard to validate it, but camera or physical list, have it signed by the seller, upload it with your MLS listing, and then there's no question what's going to happen at closing. Some of the biggest drama, as Jordas pointed out, if it's your vendor or anything that's done on your watch, it's your fault. You are the center of the transaction. So if there's some problem with inventory that doesn't go properly, whose fault is it going to be? Yours, right? By the way, I wore my Charge the Storm t-shirt for a family reunion, and that's a buffalo. And what is a buffalo? There's a huge storm coming. What does a buffalo do? A buffalo charges into the storm. Everybody else runs away from the storm. So we have a storm, the current real estate market. So what are we going to do as buffaloes? We're going to charge the storm, right? So that's where the t-shirt. Gary Keller.
Okay.
Jordas, are you a buffalo? There you go.
That's all right.
Pardon?
Dances with wolves.
Tatanka,
There you go. All right.
somebody got the reference.
So really, this is a little, few lines in this contract, but they can mean the difference between a smooth transaction, everybody's on the same page, and drama. You know,
Can I just ask you, what line were you on when you say like if they have the exclusion?
line 24,
Okay,
I'm not a big fan of just an exclusion list. Because then I don't know what is included. But if there are specific family heirlooms or electronics or ring doorbells or whatever, they should be listed on line 24. But if there's other things that are going, any type of furniture, accessories, paintings, anything that's not traditionally considered to convey with a house, it needs to go on a separate list and be signed off by the seller. And then the question is, you know, do you want your speakers that are mounted on the wall there? Do you want your, what do they call them, Sonos speakers? Do you want your ring doorbell? Do you want your video cameras? All of those things that are screwed into the wall. Typically, if there's a bracket and a camera attached to it, the bracket stays. But that doesn't make much sense, right? Why would I take the camera with the bracket? So you want to have this discussion, you know, they're interested in what they can sell the house for and what the market's going to be and what your commission is and all those kinds of things. But your job is to make sure you understand exactly what they want to convey. Now, if there is no integrated home automation, you don't have to draw a line through. I've seen people draw a line through every one of them. If it isn't there, it can't convey, right? Anyhow, pay attention to this list. Make sure that once you've agreed that you're going to be the listing agent, that you really focus on this part of the contract to make sure you have everything on here is going to convey, the seller understands it. And if there's other things that are going to convey, then you need to have a list. And if it's going to be partially furnished or turnkey, doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about what we talked about on the sales contract, including personal property on the contract itself. This can be the basis of a personal property sales agreement that can have an inventory that can detail exactly what's going to convey. I know you're looking at it. What's the price? What's the commission? No, all those things are important, but this is probably the key to a successful listing. All right. The property, we saw that when we looked at the Collier County appraiser. All right, we got a lot of information there. Any idea why those pound signs are there next to garage, cabanas, storage lockers, boat docks?
Unit number,
Oh,
Multiples.
unit number.
Correct, there you go. So if it's parking space A101 and A102, that's what goes in there. If you just put a 2, classic cases, I'm in a high rise, I'm an early buyer, I got the place right next to the elevator. All I gotta do is get my stuff out and walk right in. Then I see my neighbor who bought 5 years later, and they're in the North 40, about 100 yards away. And they're like, hey, I hear you're selling. Yeah, I'm selling. Can I have your parking spaces? You put a 2 there, and they go down to the office and do a swap. Your buyer's not going to be very happy. So you always want to make sure that if there's a storage locker number or a dock number or whatever, that the numbers there are what they're going to convey. And it's also going to mirror that on the sales contract. So now you're learning the sales contract portion as well as the listing contract portion, because they're mirror images of each other. All right. The legal description we got from the property appraiser, the address, the PID number, that's this parcel ID number here. Okay. That's important. You'll see it mirrored here. Right. So that's important. Reserve account balances. Technically, if there are reserve accounts where a seller has reserves built up in their name, depending upon how the association is structured, those balances transfer over. In other words, if there's been assessments paid into a fund, the seller can't take those with them at when they leave. So you don't see that come up too much. All right, so line 39, okay. The sales price is something that your seller should buy into. They should make the final decision as to what goes on that line. right? So I'm thinking that you go into your listing presentation, you don't put a number in there. You've got your comparative market analysis, you've got all the things going on. And what you're gonna do as a transaction broker is you're gonna say, I think this house should sell somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 million. Or 1.2 and 1.3 million. But you want the seller to understand what your rationale is, what the competition looks like, features and benefits of the competition. And you want them to make the final decision as to what this price is. And this is where this becomes much more of a negotiating skill than anything else you'll do in this contract. You need to have a range that you believe will sell the property in a reasonably short period of time based on the features and benefits of this particular dwelling against its competition, against its past sales, and against what's active. Okay, that's called a comparative market analysis, and we could probably do a whole class on that. We did one the other night for the MLS.
But ultimately, the seller doesn't even show price estimate.
The seller, now, you always want to know what this estimate is because the seller's going to look. We have a couple of other, CoreLogic has an estimate that's part of your MLS. There's an estimated value. These are called AVMs, or automated valuation methods. And there are a number of them out there, okay? And they'll give you a range. They'll give you a confidence score, which in this case is low. Standard deviation's high, but they'll start to give you an idea of what the valuation methods, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. You can also go to RPR. As a realtor, you're entitled to go to RPR, which is the realtor valuation method. And that in itself is another discussion of how you go into that and how you get a realtor valuation method and how. So you're going to do the research. We're going to probably elaborate more on how you do the research. But at that meeting, you want to give the seller an idea of what the opinion of the market situation is and what the range is. And knowing full well that if the seller says, well, you're recommending between 1.2 and 1.4, and my neighbor sold 2 years ago for 1.8. So why is this so low? Laughing is not permitted. Smiling is, yes, the market is substantially different. Again, during this conversation, you want to find out motivation. I want to downsize. I want to move near my family. I have parents to take care of. I got to do this. What's your motivation? Because motivation and price are very interrelated, right? If I'm just taking a wing and a prayer and throwing it out there and hope I can cash out, that's not much motivation. If I've got a family situation or I want to downsize, the children are grown, they're gone, I don't need this much space. So you want to understand what the motivation is, and you want to constantly focus on that, because the more and more that price is above what you think the market conditions are, the harder and harder it's going to be to sell. Okay. And psychologically, buyers, 95+% of them start on the internet. Zillow, realtor.com, homes.com. There's a lot of sites out there, and they'll look and see, they know what they're going to want to spend. They know what neighborhoods they like, and they go and they see your listing pop up. Oh, great, a new listing. Oh, where did they get that price? Oh, that's not worth it. Click. Not only have you told the buyer, have you turned the buyer off, right? You've told the buyer that your price isn't realistic. And in many cases, even if you bring it down a couple of weeks later, the buyer's going to be, forget that place. That's the syndrome you don't want, right? And what happens to a seller is they chase the market down. Oh, it was too high. Oh, I was too high. And by the time they've done 2 or 3 price reductions and start to get some activity, what's happened to the amount of money they're going to get for the property? It's chased down their net. Okay, so be careful with that pricing. It's got to be a discussion. My recommendation is it's always the seller's decision, so you have buy-in to what you're putting out there. So I'm not a fan of putting a price in there. I'm a fan of showing the customer, the seller, exactly what your feeling of the market is, what prior sales have occurred, what's on the market, how quickly the market's turning over, and comparing the features and benefits. You know, I have green granite, so I should get more. No, I don't think so. But, you know, bedrooms, pools, significant things can change how you compare one property to another, and we can do a whole class on how you do a comparative market analysis. So, okay. We're past that. Now we're down into the boilerplate of the contract, the broker's obligations. Obviously, you can scan these over, but that's what you're going to do for the customer. And if you have some examples of some of your prior marketing, or some of the things you're going to do, or some of the places you're going to market this property, it's a good idea to talk to them about what you're going to do to fulfill your side of the promise. So understand that you're going to try to make sure they understand how hard you're going to work to disseminate their property all over the internet, to local brokerages, open houses, things like that. That's your time to explain your marketing strategy. A broker to select one. Okay. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this MLS rule that was put in a couple of years ago now, but the MLS rule basically says that you have basically one business day to enter a listing into the MLS after you've begun to market it to the public. Okay, that could mean a sign in the ground, it could mean an email blast, it could mean a social media post that says exactly what you're going to sell at, you know, what house it is and what it's going to sell for. That's considered public marketing. Okay, and any public marketing must be followed in one business day by the entry into the MLS. Otherwise, there are, you know, significant warnings and fines. And why did they do this? They did this because there were whole brokerages that wouldn't put anything into the MLS. Our brokerage, our MLS is voluntary, you don't have to put it in. But the problem was the brokerages would advertise it on the internet and on their own site, and customers would be forced to deal just strictly with the listing agent, right? It was not in the spirit of cooperation. So the rule came in that said, hey, you got 24 hours. So can I have an open house on Saturday and Sunday and put it in the MLS on Monday? Yeah, you bet you can. Can I do an email blast on Friday and out about a new listing? Yeah, you can. One business day is Monday night. You can use the weekend. There's a little bit of flexibility, but for the most part, you're going to put a sign in the ground or do any kind of public marketing, they need to check box 1 there. Okay. If box 2 is checked, broker shall not market the property outside of the broker's office, including but not limited to. So any type of public marketing. It's rare that a seller in this day and age doesn't want their property on the market. I mean, that's probably the quickest way that they can get the word out and get the highest possible price in the shortest period of time, which is what we're trying to do here. But if you run into a situation where the seller says, I don't want to market it anywhere, you know, do the best you can. It's almost just short of a pocket listing because there's no way you can do any kind of marketing. Can you market it within our brokerage? Sure. Can you make individual phone calls to agents that you think might be interested in the property? Yes. Can you do a mass mailing, social media post, anything that could be received and interpreted by the public? You can't do that. So generally, you're going to check box 1. What?
And so we see someone with the sign up and it's not on the MLS.
It's a violation.
So what should we do in that case?
Turn them in. MLS@NABOR.com. Here's the address. Here's the sign. They'll call them. The violations for doing that on Marco is $2,500 first time. On NABOR, it's a warning, and then it starts with $500 fines for ignoring it. We haven't had a lot of violations of that, but I mean, it generally changed the pattern of people trying to market exclusively without cooperation. So overall, I think it was good. It was really controversial when it was put in, but seems to have helped the accessibility of all realtors to a property that's listed for sale. Line 59 is a discussion that I want you to have with your sellers, okay? You really want to be able to disclose the existence of offers on the property. You can disclose whatever the seller is willing to let you disclose. And when we were dealing with tons of multiple offers, the more information you could disclose generally got better and higher offers for the seller. There are still cases where an aggressively priced property can generate multiple offers. So I want you to make sure you talk to the seller and say it's in your best interest that you allow me to share information with other brokers when they call me. And what's the first thing we talk about before you're getting ready to write a sales contract? Call the listing broker. Ask the listing broker for information. So you should have maybe a list of things that you can you say it's financed? Can you say there's offers above and below list price? The more information you can share, the better the offers are going to come in. And what we're now not new agents anymore. So whenever we decide to write a sales contract, the first thing we're going to do is call the listing agent and talk to them and find out what's going on with that house. Are there other offers? What can you tell me about the other offers? Are there things that the seller would like a 60-day close? Or what can I put in my offer that would make my offer stand out? Always have that conversation. And once you have that conversation, then on the other side, if you're the listing broker, you want to be able to share pertinent information about what's going on with the property when someone calls you. You know, if you have a buyer that's like, hey, you know, prices are crashing. This place is on the market for $710,000. I want to offer $550. What do you think? Well, as a realtor, you are required by law to present all offers, right? But if you call the listing agent says, I've already got 2 other offers over the list price, and we've turned down everything under that. Why would you go back to your buyer and say, you know, this might not be the property to try that kind of an offer. There's already 2 offers on it, and they've already turned down anything under 700. So whatever you'd like to do, I'll still present the offer for you because that's my job, but I'm not sure why you would want to do that. So that conversation with the listing agent is very important. And as a listing agent, it's very important for you to understand what the seller is willing to let you tell. And I think you ought to be careful with any type of motivation. If it's a divorce, if it's, you know, family trauma, anything like that, that's not something you want to disclose because that could cause take the property. Also, if there has been a death on the property or a communicable disease such as AIDS that's caused from the prior seller, you are not allowed by law to disclose that. Why? Because it doesn't have anything to do with the property. But you know, your neighbors will call and say, hey, you know, there was a murder in that house. I don't know why you're not disclosing it. You can't. It's right in the state law. You are not able to disclose information about anything that happened prior in the way of a health emergency or any type of crime or any type of death in the house. So be careful with that. And I've had agents call and the neighbors are just mercilessly beating on them saying, why didn't you tell that? Because I'm not selling what happened in this house in the past. I'm selling this house for its market value because it's a residence. It's not a history lesson. And if somebody asks you in an open house, if you know anything about it, say, you're welcome to search on the internet. You're welcome to do whatever information you want. I'm not able to discuss that with you. That'll come up, by the way. Internet options. These are fairly straightforward. You want to put the property on the internet. You want to display the address. No reason why you wouldn't want to display the address of the property, right? Where you get into discussion is on line 67. So automated valuation methods are Zestimates, the core logic estimate we just looked at. Those, the better they are, the easier your job. So back when Zestimates first started coming out, they were horrible. They could only use public record data. They had no idea what closed in the MLS, and they were horrible. They were 20% accurate in the Naples market when Zillow first, but you had to explain that to a seller the minute you walked in the door, because what have they done? They've gone online before you got there, figure out. Zillow says it's worth this. You need to be able to deal with that. And so, starting several years ago, we started sending them the last 10 years of public records, closed sale data. I think it might be 5, whatever. We every day, we update Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com and anybody that's on our feed with the most current closed sale information. So what's happened? These estimates and zestimates have gotten more accurate. Makes your job a little easier because it should be that you're pretty close in your recommendation to the market. And if it's not, Zillow might not have all the information. They might not know there's a pool or something like that. So anyhow, that's why we always suggest you say may display an automated valuation method. And blogging, not a fan of blogging because it's all downside. The ugly pink carpet in the back bedroom is the worst I've ever seen. You know, it's all, so there's very few sites that allow blogging. I don't think you can blog on any of the major channels, but there used to be like lookyloo.com and some of the weird websites that had allowed you to make comments. And since we no longer syndicate listings to everybody in the world, list track, I think Keller Williams does send to list track. So Keller Williams sends out to a lot more websites through the KWLS, but the board only sends to the top 4 or 5. And the reason was we were spraying all these listings out. They weren't being updated. They had comments on them and it was kind of a nightmare for data accuracy. So we stopped. A brokerage can sign up for list track, which is the one that sends out to multiple websites. But you know, the board itself doesn't send anything. So lock boxes, you know, are the super lock boxes. They're the ones you buy at the store for $100, and you have to have an app on your phone to open it, and you have to be a realtor in good standing in order to be able to do it. So it's reasonably secure, and you get a notice when somebody went in there, how long they were in there, and when they left. So it's a relatively secure way to allow somebody to enter your listing without a big security risk. I'm not a fan of those spin type lock boxes because anybody can get that combination. And I'll guarantee if they go in there and do a showing while you're the listing agent and something turns up missing, whose fault's it gonna be? This way, if something's missing, you know who went in there, you know their phone number, you can call them and deal with them directly. So I always recommend it. Now, some people say, well, I don't really want my neighbors to know, so I don't want that lockbox on my front door. Fine, put it around on the side, on the hose bib, somewhere where if you can't get there, you don't want to lose a showing over it, okay? And ultimately, you have to ask the seller about showings. Well, how would they like them? How often? In some cases, they'll say, I only want the showing when you're there. That's up to the seller. That's part of your dialogue. Okay, you're always a transaction broker on 79. And then we talk about the seller's obligations. All right. This is where 85 is where it's an exclusive right to sell. Refer immediately all inquiries about a property, whether those inquiries are from other brokers or any other person or entities. That's what makes it exclusive. Any interest in selling the property is a responsibility of the seller to notify you so that you can service the listing and be compensated. All right. You really have to, if the seller's doing any type of updating or changes to their house during the listing, they need to let you know about that so you don't schedule showings. And you're going to learn to use showing time, which allows you to go in. Most appointments are now scheduled online through what we call showing time, which is a product that's affiliated with our MLS. And you can block out the times that you can put in exactly the times the property is available for showing. So if there's going to be a painting contractor in there on Wednesday, you don't want showings when that painting contractor is there. So that's essentially what they're trying to do. Obviously, the seller's obligated to provide the broker with any information. Some of that can come to you on a seller's disclosure. Some of that can come to you in a discussion while you're doing the walkthrough of the house. I noticed the roof is new. Oh yeah, we had some leaks over here. We got to fix all that. All that information is useful to you because if you find out any information through the seller or through any method that materially affects the value of the house, you have to disclose it. Whether you like it or not, information that affects the value of that house that's not readily available, Johnson v. Davis, you gotta disclose it, right? We want to get the owner's title policy and, if possible, a flood elevation certificate as soon as we can in the process. This can help you when you get a contract to get that information over to the closing agent, and it'll help get the title work and municipal lien search work done a little faster. Obviously, the provide you factual data. Notice in here that any information and marketing materials and everything that we do under contract is the property of the broker. In other words, we spend money taking pictures, doing floor plans, doing all kinds of marketing, and when the listing's over, that's the property of the broker. It's not the property. The seller can't say, well, I'm going to go with somebody else, Joe. You're a good guy, but give me all your pictures, give me everything you've done. Flop them over here. No, sorry, can't do that. Talk a little bit about 118 to 120. All right. You know, you can go, actually, my wife wanted a couple cameras for the house, and you can go for a very small amount of money and get a very high quality. She wants the outside. Some people put them on the inside to see what's going on. And if the seller is going to use those cameras during showings, open houses and all that, that really needs to be disclosed. So it used to be that any type of audio recording, which these cameras do very, very, very well, was required the written permission of from the buyer to be recorded. There's been a couple court cases where if it's in a real estate setting, there's no expectation that the buyer has some privilege that they would have to agree to be recorded. They're being recorded. And if the seller is going to use that equipment, you really should disclose it. There's a little sign you can get when you're doing open houses. Be careful, there's audio and visual surveillance going on. But the bottom line is you're expected to be videoed. There's no protection from video. They say the average person's videoed somewhere around 40 times a day, right? You go to the shopping center or whatever.
You guys say the recent one that's going around with the guy that was drinking the milk?
Yeah, okay. The guy got caught drinking milk out of the it's kind of gross. Why would you drink milk out of somebody's carton? But anyhow, the seller saw it and the realtor got fined.
$20,000.
Yeah, it was a big, you know, where the board loses its sense of humor is when you do stuff, that dumb stuff like that. You let a customer in and then you go on another appointment while they're swimming in the pool and all that. It's a lot of crazy stuff, but if it gets caught, you can lose your lockbox privileges for a year. You don't want that. So the bottom line is audio and visual recording goes on. You'd like to know if the equipment's there, and if you see it, you'd like to ask the seller if they're planning on using it. There isn't any super real penalty about it. It used to be audio was more of a problem than it has been. But the bottom line is if you're showing property to a buyer, you say to them, there could be cameras in here, there could be audio recording. Maybe not a great time to make comments about what you're willing to pay or what you think of this feature or anything that it could affect your negotiations with the seller.
So you don't have to have that in writing at all, that can just be verbal.
It's on the bottom of every MLS customer report.
Okay.
On the bottom of every public report, it says conversation should not be considered confidential.
Yeah, okay.
But as when you're showing property and when you're talking to the sellers, say, are you planning on using recordings? Because if you are, when I'm doing an open house, I have to let people know. But I don't recommend you listen in on people while they're showing. But it's their equipment. You advised them.
So if the seller has equipment outside of the home, there has to be something in the front yard that says you are taking video.
Yes, you're supposed to, but I don't think it's quite as critical as it was because the recent court rulings are kind of like, let it go. But I think you should know as an agent if your seller is going to use those cameras. And I think if you're doing an open house, there's a little card thing that you can get that says audio visual recording devices may be in use, just as a disclaimer to protect yourself. You can't stop a seller from doing that. You can just alert them to the fact that, you know, everybody's gonna know. So you're not gonna get any leg up on what's going on your property, but you can't stop. But it's something, when you're going through this agreement with them, just say, hey, if you're planning on using this stuff, understand that it's, you know, confidential. Okay, so 122 is the full amount of your compensation. So if you're gonna get a 6% commission and you're gonna share it with the co-broke for 3%, you put 6 there. That's the total amount of compensation to the broker. You can add a charge, like many brokers add a $295 charge, a lot of teams do to cover their admin, or you can do it for a flat fee. But that's the total amount of revenue coming in from the sale. So if you put 3 there, and down here on 136, you put 3 to the co-broke, how much are you gonna get paid at closing? Do I see it? I see it a couple times a month. Oh, geez, I forgot.
That's why.
And it
you
was
need
6,
to
3, and
your
3.
paperwork.
Just,
So what would you put down for the flat fee? You said some people.
well, I mean, I've seen people sell it for $10,000. Now, co-broke 5,000. Not happen very often. Some sellers are, you know, that's all I'm gonna pay you. Okay. Fine. But usually it's a percent. It's not, we're not, you know, it's an antitrust to say this is what we usually do. I mean, what I recommend you do is look in the neighborhood and see what co-brokes are being paid. Now, remember in MLS, it doesn't show you what the listing broker is getting. It shows you what's being paid to the co-broke. So it could be 6%, could be 7% if they have a referral. That only thing that's shown in the MLS is what you're paying for the co-broke, which is down on line 136.
I have a question. In this case, if you're doing it for a listing, will you only put what you're getting or what the seller is giving to you and to the buyer
That's the
agent?
total compensation to the broker on 122. So if it's
Okay.
if it's a 6% listing and you're going to split it 3 and 3, it's 6 there and 3 down there. If there's a referral fee being paid out by the listing broker, maybe the listing broker is going to put 6 and 2.5, so if they can pay that referral fee. But you as a buyer's agent do not know till you see the closing statement what the listing broker's compensation is.
So you're saying on 125, you put 3?
122, you would put 6,
Yeah.
and 136, you would put 3. That's the co-broke. 125 is if you're planning on receiving compensation if the place is rented. That doesn't happen very often. Some sellers will try to list a property for sale and rent it. You can do it at the same time in the MLS.
Yeah. Without opening up a can of worms, do you have any comments on the following? Because I've been hearing agents upset recently where, let's say, maybe an agent did list it at 6, only gave it 2.5. And then when they get the Alta statement, they saw that the agent was at 3.5. They get all pissy about it. You want to?
I had an experienced agent go nuts, start writing nasty emails to the listing agent and copying me. And I called her and I said, you need to back off. Well, that's not fair. I said, how do you know? So the guy writes me back. He's a good guy. He says, look, I'm sorry, I'm paying 2 referral fees. I'm only making 1%. She's making 2.5. How do you know, right? How do you know what the total compensation, what the broker is going to do with the total compensation? So you never know. But if you find on the HUD that the listing broker is getting more than you are, you have no, that's really not any of your concern.
You knew up front what you're earning on the
Right.
MLS sold you.
Right.
If the listing broker is getting more, there could be a reason. They could be saying they could be giving a credit to the seller. They could be paying for inspections, appraisals. You don't know. And you don't really have a right to ask. And it's super unprofessional if you go off on the listing agent because they're getting more, because you don't even know. a lot of, you know, I don't take very many listings. When I'm paying for an appraisal and an inspection. It's a divorce, and I don't want any monkey business. Coming right off the top, a couple $1,000, right? But I want to know what's wrong with that house and I want to know what a good appraiser says it's worth. So if there's any question of, oh, you sold it for too little, or you did this, or you did that. So that's coming out of my pocket. You don't know that when I put 2.5 out there. So you don't know the story, and you don't really have a right to ask for the story. So that's your promise of compensation. The time you submit the offer, that's your promise of compensation.
One comment I'll add to that too. So going back to the buyer broker or buyer loyalty agreement, in that contract, it even states how much the compensation is. And if you actually read it by default, it basically says that the buyer is going to pay that. But I always just put that the buyer is not paying anything.
Right.
I'll negotiate that with the seller side. Yeah, if you want to, every buyer side you do is 3%, and only 2.5% is offered, and you wanted to, and upfront you've negotiated, they have to cover the difference. I've seen agents that do that as well. Or you just get what's being offered on the market. But that's where you negotiate your value up front with the buyer, if you're gonna have them cover anything. It's rare, I don't really see.
Chances are, we as the broker won't chase somebody for half a point, but if the buyer says, okay, that was my deal, I'll put it in at closing. Let's see. So the only other thing I have is this 138, 139 is probably the most confusing section. And a lot of this is going to be the same in FAR-BAR. So we'll finish this up in a couple minutes and try FAR-BAR. But the point is that this is an NAR thing from a prior negotiation. Transaction brokers, single agents, and no brokerage relationships. I see it all over the place. There's no reason why that number should be any different. And all the boxes should be checked, and no brokerage relationship could be somebody coming over here from another MLS or representing somebody on a referral. You don't know what the relationship is, but you want to pay a co-broke if they bring you a buyer. So my suggestion is check all those boxes and pay the same, whether it's a single agent. I've seen them go 3% for a single agent, 2% for a transaction broker, and no percent. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. Just check all three, pay them all the same. Would be my suggestion. The purpose of 140 and 144 to 150 are as follows. If I decide to swap the property for a yacht or another property somewhere else out of state, or a couple of properties, that doesn't matter. It's still a sale, it's still a recorded sale of that property. You are still entitled to a compensation for that transaction. And 144 to 149, okay, this protects you. You can put in 90 days, you can put in 180 days. I don't think you want to put too much longer than that, but the point is that during that period of time, after your listing contract has expired, if a buyer comes along that saw the property during your listing agreement and closes it, you're entitled to compensation. And yes, we have pressed that. But it's the seller says, hey, Joe, you know, I see you're listed. Now, why don't you just call me? When does it expire? Oh, I think it expires the end of August. Okay, well, call me in September. We'll do a deal. You don't have to pay a commission. But you've seen the house, you like the house. So all of a sudden, I always recommend you maintain surveillance if you lost a listing, just to protect yourself. So you pop up in the records, and this happened to an agent. It pops up in the records that, wow, this was the buyer that I was working with for 4 years, and they went ahead and bought this from the listing agent, and they went ahead and bought it from the seller while it was within this period of time. I'm entitled to a commission, and it's public record. You sold it to Joe Cotto, and I showed Joe Cotto the property and such. So it's not a difficult thing. It's only difficult if you don't catch it. But where it goes awry is if the minute I list the property with another broker, that period of protection goes away. Okay. So the purpose of this paragraph says you're protected for that period of time unless it's listed by another broker. Okay. As soon as it becomes listed by another broker, your protection period expires, okay? Seller sales contract obligations. Okay, here's where I think you need to do a seller net sheet. And we can do a workshop on that, but a seller net sheet, basically, there are a couple of different, Venture Title has one, Title Alliance has one. You can Google it. There's every major title company has either an app or a worksheet where you can put in, you know, if you're talking about a range of selling prices, put the middle in and do a net sheet, because this is ridiculous to try to explain all these terms to a seller. What's a tenant estoppel letter? Well, a tenant estoppel letter says, if I'm renting it, I've got a note from the tenant that I've paid my rent current. So all of these things can be handled real easily by just doing a seller net sheet. Okay.
What number are you at?
Pardon?
What number are we at? One?
Well, you're on seller's sales contract obligations. So convey marketable title, that's something that's done by the closing agent. One of the things you have to find out, you have to go over with the seller, is that if there's a garage full of junk during the walkthrough and you haven't cleared it out, it's got to be transferred in broom swept condition with all the things we agreed to transfer. And anything above or beyond that, we could assess, you know, we could cause you to escrow money to put it in broom swept condition. Doesn't have to be spotlessly clinically cleaned, but it can't have a garage full of junk. It can't have food in the refrigerator. It can't have, you know, stuff that's not supposed to be there. Otherwise, the buyer has the right to get the cleaning company to come in, dispose of it. And it's a great idea to have that conversation fairly early on with your seller, especially if you go in the garage and it's like,
I had a comment here, Jeff. Earlier you mentioned about the super lockbox, which that's why I always recommend that being the primary access to the home for agents. I got in the habit about 4 years ago of also adding a combo, but like on the side of the house somewhere extra for like this type of scenario where either talking for going, I can't be there and really don't need to be there for vacant property showings or pictures on a vacant property. Well, like even this, I had that one time day of closing, and they didn't empty out the garage, so I was able to get a company out there, but I couldn't physically get out there and let them in. And I always had this backup box in case of emergency. So little thing I've been.
yours truly has cleaned out a couple of garages in his life.
Wait, so what's the backup box?
The regular
Right.
company stop lock, and I just had a separate key in there for emergencies where I need to let somebody in.
For business.
Vendor, some, only on vacant homes, obviously owner occupied.
Most appraisers have super access,
Yeah, they do.
sort of thing, but if it's a vendor, they don't have super access. Inspectors used to have access in Benita, but that got.
Most of it should be going with fire.
So down here in the seller's disclosure, obviously, if you do a seller's net sheet, the taxes are prorated, all that other kind of stuff. So you, and down on button 82, we've added propane gas. A lot of homes now have big propane tanks, right? And they got a lot of propane in them. The seller is entitled to be reimbursed for what's in that tank. And I've seen some drama over that because I don't know, to fill up one of those propane tanks today is a big number. So, what do you mean you're not gonna pay me for my propane gas? So if there's a tenant involved, or if this is an investment property, you gotta have a pretty clear vision of what is gonna go. If the leases are in effect when the place closes, there has to be a way to get money and deposits and everything. And if it's a VRBO or home away or anything like that, it's very complicated because Jordas just can't give me his VRBO account. I gotta get a new one. We have to have a way to move the money for security deposits and rents over to me. And generally that requires an attorney to draw up an agreement for how that works. So if your seller is an investor and they're getting rent for this, you have to make sure they understand that there has to be some way as the cutoff of closing to move those move the rental monies over. And one of the things you have to be careful about if you're a buyer, there's a provision in the sales contract that says, I have 5 days to look at the leases. There's a lot of times when a seller's getting ready to sell, he'll, hey, Jordas, you're my buddy. Why don't you get out and use that place? Give me $100 a month. You know, a lot of these leases are not market rate leases. So you want to make sure if you're on the buyer side, the buyer gets to look at all those leases, especially true on investment properties. Seller's disclosures. Okay, here's some important points in here. The seller has to represent to you that they have ownership of the property and that they know of no known issues that would materially affect the value of the property. Go back to your Johnson v. Davis. If there's something going on in the house and the seller, you know, isn't planning on doing anything about it, you need to know that, and the seller's obligation is to disclose that to you. On line 197, the seller is not required to fill out a seller's disclosure in the state of Florida. You will get calls from other agents saying, where's the seller's disclosure? It's required by law. My broker requires. Just seller doesn't have to fill it out.
So they could mark does not elect.
Correct. And if they mark does not elect, they don't have to fill it out. Why would you not fill it out? What happens if you were an investor and you've never been in the property? What happens if you were a widow and your husband or your other spouse took care of everything? You didn't know anything about the property. What happens if it's an estate situation? What happens if it's any kind of situation where that information could negatively affect the seller?
The form itself says that it's part of Florida law,
It's not.
but it says it on the form,
Where?
on the seller's disclosure form.
No, what it says is if the seller discloses something in the seller's disclosure as defective, the buyers cannot ask the seller to repair it. If I put in my seller's disclosure that the disposal doesn't work and the buyer signs it and they put on their inspection report, fix the disposal, the seller can say, I told you that it was defective, you agreed to it, which is the reason why I think you have to be careful with seller's disclosures. You have to be careful they're accurate. And if the people aren't familiar with it or they don't feel comfortable with it, don't put it in there. It's all downside for the seller in that respect. It's a great thing for the buyer. How old's the roof? How old's the air conditioner? Were there any insurance claims on the property? Do you have an elevation certificate? All that other kind of stuff.
Well, legally, they don't have to do it.
One of the things that make a mental note that has nothing to do with this, but at some point in time, you have to find out about the seller's homeowner's insurance and flood insurance. The buyer should always know before you write the contract what the insurance situation is. Insurance in Florida is a mess right now. The rates are skyrocketing. The buyer needs to know what that is going to cost. And if this buyer gets a very high flood quote, they can always assume the seller's flood policy. And they can save a lot of money. The seller's paying here, the buyer gets quoted here. Buyer can assume that policy and it will only go up 18% per year. So it's 6 years before it might get to where they're going to pay with a brand new policy.
But only the flood policy.
Pardon?
But only the flood.
Only the flood policy. You cannot assume a homeowner's policy. Good point. If the seller's a foreign person, they need to have a TIN number, they need to have a financial advisor, and they need to understand the withholding situation. Okay, if the seller is aware of any past casualty claims, if there's a claim for Irma going on and it isn't closed, the buyer will not be able to get insurance, period. So if there's any type of claims out there and the seller's aware of it, you need to know that. And if it's an ongoing current claim that hasn't been settled, the buyer will not be able to get insurance and close on the house. So it's important to know that. There is a database that insurance companies have that have all the past claims. So that will affect your buyer's insurance rates. Lead-based paint, if it's built before 78, you have to fill out the forms. And those forms are federal requirements. They have to be signed by the listing and the selling agent to be valid. Community development districts. Okay, this is an area that has quite a few community development districts and metropolitan statistical taxing units. There is a list in the NABOR library of all of the current ones in Collier and Lee. And if it's located within a CDD, you can always tell by looking at the tax bill. This is the giveaway here. if I go into this tax bill. And I see a non-ad valorem assessment other than the garbage. Chances are that's either a CDD or an MSTU that's externally billed and collected and maintained. So there's Pelican Marsh, there's a number of them, there's probably what, 6 or 7 pages of them. If you see it in the general ad valorem county maintained MSTD, MSTU, does not apply. I've seen agents send over an MSTU for $12 a year and go, this has got it. No. If it's in the ad valorem tax, it's administered by the county and you do not require a separate form. Okay. The next part of it is assessments. Assessments are complicated. They are generally in the NABOR contract and the FAR contract by selection. They are generally the property of the seller if it's prior to the effective date of the contract, and the property of the buyer if it's assessed after the contract, the effective date of the contract. You have to be a little careful to understand. Again, as a listing agent, it's a good idea for you to get in contact with a management company. The seller may or may not have read their mail, they may or may not care, but you need to know if there's any upcoming assessments that are being discussed. You need to talk to the management company. If there are assessments that are being discussed but haven't been levied, you have to disclose those to the buyer, because otherwise the buyer is entitled to use this last provision where if the seller doesn't set forth the obligation and let the buyer know, then everything in excess of 1% of the purchase price has to be paid by the seller, or the buyer can cancel. So if there's a major assessment coming up, let's say it's an insurance settlement from Ian, and it hasn't been levied yet, but it's being discussed, and you know it's coming, and you don't tell the buyer about that, all of a sudden, 2 weeks before closing, there's a $12,000 assessment, and you didn't tell the buyer about it, the buyer can say, wait a minute, I'll pay the first 1%, you pay everything over that, or I'm out of here. So you have to be careful with what we call pending special assessments. Always a great idea to get a hold of the management company or the association office and talk directly to the property manager and say, is there anything going on? You always get information from them, and you can get what's called a sales packet from the association, which will have their rules and regs, current data on financials. It's going to help you in the transition once you go under contract. Basically, default occurs, and we've had cases where you bring a ready, willing, and able buyer, and the seller says, not for me. It has to be exceptional conditions, because in these days of multiple offers, a seller turning down a full price offer is not that normal. What you hope to do is to get the best possible offer for the seller. It closes and you get rid of it. If for some reason the buyer walks away, there is a provision in here where the broker can retain up to 50% of those retained deposits, but not to exceed their commission. I've seen that happen a couple times. Normally you want to put the property back on the market, resell it to somebody else. But there are cases where it's a cantankerous seller and you really don't want to put them back on the market because they weren't very cooperative to begin with. You have the right to get those deposits. And many sellers will balk at that when they're reading your listing agreement. So if they balk at it, draw a line through it, initial it, and move on. The only other thing I've ever seen challenged is that the laws in interpreting this contract are based on the county where they are, where the property is located. I've had corporate lawyers disagree because they're in Miami or they're in Palm Beach or whatever, and they don't want to come to Collier to litigate. I've seen that crossed out. I don't think it's necessarily in your seller's best interest, but that is a provision in there that sometimes gets challenged. The only addendum to the contract. Okay, so what can we use in other terms and conditions? The answer is nothing. Never want to get your pen out and start writing things in there. However, can you use that for an alternative MLS date? Yes. The MLS requires you to put the listing in the MLS within 5 business days of the contract being signed. What happens if there's repairs, there's staging, there's photography, there's marketing, and you can't get done in 5 days? You can put listing shall not be placed on the MLS until professional photography, repairs, or whatever are complete. Any key to cancel?
I don't know.
Jordas?
That's Collier. Just click on Collier. We're doing this typing.
Is that the TV or is that the,
I think
just
that's
give it-
it.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, you got that.
So when
That was their way of giving me the hook. Okay, you got 20 seconds. Anyhow, you can write simple things into this line, but the most common use of it is if there's going to be a delay in getting it on the MLS. You can put in there that the listing shall be placed on the MLS when repairs, photography are completed, not to exceed 14 days. If you need some language, I'll be glad to help you with that. But MLS could ask for a copy of this because you put it on the MLS 2 weeks after you took the contract. But let me go back to the very beginning and stress to you that the date of this contract should be the date you have a meeting of the minds with the seller. Okay, what happens if the seller says, look, I'm leaving town in September 1st and I'd just soon start the listing then. In the other terms and conditions, listing will be placed on the MLS on September 1. If you put September 1 on line 19, and all of a sudden I'm in the grocery store and I'm a seller and I run into my old buddy Joe. Joe says, hey, Jeff, did you know I'm in real estate? No, Joe, I didn't. I just signed the listing. I'd have given it to you. That listing says August 1st and Joe signs it. Or September 1st and Joe signs it August 15th. What happens to your listing? Done. Always make the commencement date the date that you have a meeting in the minds with the seller. If it's got to go on a different place in MLS, fine, put that in other terms and conditions. All right, so
we have a requirement within the MLS to upload the photos and things right away.
you have 5 days under the MLS rule between the date that you sign the listing contract and the date it goes on MLS. But it's gonna be longer than that, then I would put the date that it's going on MLS and the other terms and conditions. And therefore, you don't have to abide by that 5-day rule. Generally, you can get photos and stuff done, but usually there's some things the seller wants to clean up and all that. Always include the seller's mailing address, because those are where legal notices have to go. Those are where probably that's the address on their tax bill. That sort of thing. Your listing licensee's printed name goes there. Our policy is the brokerage firm name is always Keller Williams Realty Naples. Our policy is, my policy is, you can sign that, or you can send it to me to sign, e-sign, but I'll see it on compliance. But the best thing you can do is to make sure that once that seller signs it, they have a fully executed copy. So it's a great idea to send it to me, then take it to your listing contract with a couple copies. The seller signs them both. Here's your copy. The worst thing I can get is a call from a seller that says, I don't have a copy of a signed agreement. Oops. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but the seller deserves a copy of this.
Yeah.
And your license is within 2 business days, but you know, the seller deserves a copy of this signed agreement. So, all right, so we're almost out of time here, or we are out of time. The terms and conditions of most everything in this exclusive right of sale listing agreement are the same. The property a little bit different, but almost everything in here is the same. But remember, you want to use this ERS 18TB. That's the transaction broker agreement. And also the bottom pages of every FAR agreement have to be initialed by the seller, by the agent, and the broker. So again, you can send these to me, but if you send them to me to e-sign, make sure you put initials here. And then on page 3, let's see, in the upper right, this has to do with using mediation, arbitration to resolve disputes. Another one down here. Another one here, another one here. Okay, so make sure you understand that they have to make sure that you have to initial the bottom of every page for the contract to be valid. Other than that, the language is very similar. I don't really need to go over every one of them. Always have a seller net sheet handy with you on your agreement. Compensation is exactly the same. At the top of 106, you put in the total amount, and then cooperation with other brokers on 133, you put your split. The bar listing agreement does have a conditional termination paragraph 11, which is different from the NABOR agreement. You can agree in there if you like. If the seller wants to terminate, the buyer can you can put a cancellation fee in there. I don't know, it's not a great time to have that discussion while you're taking the listing. So, but if you say my broker's policy, what I recommend is if the seller wants to terminate, you're not getting along, at least reimburse us for our costs, right?
Question.
But if you put a number in there on line 144, that's basically saying the broker, the buyer, excuse me, the seller can cancel with the broker at any time for that fee. I don't know. A lot of people put 0 in there, but if you put a number in there, that's basically saying to the seller, you can cancel if you want to for this amount. And that's it. I mean, really, the contracts are very similar, other than that they have to be initialed at the bottom and signed, and the terms and everything, we don't really need to.
The neighbor contract could be signed back here.
Pardon?
Because I know this under the contract is signed.
There's no initials required at the bottom of the NABOR contract, ever. Only on farm.
But any of them serve. as
Where
the
did they
same
sign
thing.
it?
Where do they sign? Where it says seller right by your finger. Did you see it?
Seller signature, line 180. It's like,
Yeah,
it's a long contract.
The seller signed here, there's more than one seller, they sign there.
Yeah.
And that's the wire fraud. But this is where you would sign or I would sign, that's the brokerage firm name. Okay. Any other questions?
You can use any of them.
So,
Huh?
as I say, you're welcome to send these to me via e-sign. I'm happy to look them over. Maybe I can catch something or I have a couple questions for you, and then take it to your seller to sign.
Do you say fill them out first, then send them to you?
People do it all the time.
Yeah. just make
And
sure.
then when it goes through compliance, I've already looked at it. I don't have to look at it. All right,
Yes, sir.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. So one thing before you leave, next Monday is not a scheduled class. But if you'd like to do a contract workshop, I'm happy to do a hands-on contract workshop with you. Jordas is gonna be out at Mega Camp, but I'll be happy to come and bring your laptops and we'll have at it. We'll write a contract.
Yeah. What time? Yes.
Okay.
10?
Start at 9 or you want? I don't care.
No, whatever you tell us.
Yeah, you tell us.
Let's start at 9 and then
Okay.
I'm gonna bring your laptop. I'm gonna try to make it as hands-on as possible,
Okay.
but we'll pick out a property and we'll write a contract.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's great.
But we're still looking on Thursday.
Pardon? We're still doing Thursday, yeah. I want to do the financing contingency with you next.
So Monday at 9. Okay.
We have to pay them for that?
Yeah, what's your fee?
Monday's optional, but if you want to come, I mean, the contract workshops are generally pretty good.
Yeah.
Late 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, yeah?
Yeah.